Let me out, do you hear me? Let me out, or I will scream until your walls crack. The answer came from her own throat, not as voice, but as a whisper that was not hers. Saielit, she froze. The sound slid under her skin like a warm needle, tender and cruel at once. She pressed both hands to her neck and found the collar. It was not leather, not iron. It was alive. Runes lay along it like veins, faintly pulsing, and when she touched one, it tightened with a careful patience, as if it had been waiting for her fingers. Saielit, it breathed again, directly into the place where fear and scent were born. No, she swallowed, forcing air into her lungs. I do not know that name. The cage door was only a handspan away, bars close enough to taste. The floor smelled of old sweat and cold metal. Her wrists were bare, no chains, and that made it worse. The collar did not need chains. It held her with every heartbeat. Above the cage, someone had nailed a wooden sign. The letters were thick and black, rushed and angry. Omega, defective, do not scent, defective. The words scraped at something in her mind, a memory that refused to open. She tried to stand. The collar tightened again, not choking, just reminding. Pain bloomed as pressure, like a thumb pressing into the exact center of her pulse. She grabbed the bars and shook them. The metal rang, and in response the corridor answered with a sound that made the metal vibrate back. A growl, not close yet, not far either. It rolled through the stone like thunder trapped in a box. Her knees softened, betraying her. She hated her body for it. She hated the part of her that listened, that measured the distance, that wanted to know whether the creature behind the growl was coming to kill her or claim her. The air changed. It was subtle at first, a shift in temperature, a pressure in the lungs. Then it hit her like a hand over her mouth. Scent, not her own, not the stale reek of cages. This was clean, sharp, wild. It made her heart stumble, and with the stumble, something inside her answered. Her own smell surged, startlingly sweet and strange, a note that did not belong in any market or dungeon. It did not simply rise. It pulsed, with her heartbeat. She felt it, felt the invisible wave of it pushing through the bars and into the hall beyond. Panic cut through her. She tried to clamp it down the way you might hold a scream between your teeth. The collar squeezed, not to stop her scent, to guide it. She understood with a sudden clarity that made her stomach turn. Someone was pulling a leash she could not see. The collar was not a restraint. It was a hand. Footsteps approached. Boots on stone. Voices, low, impatient. "Keep your eyes down," one said. "She can hear me," another murmured, like he feared the bars would repeat his words. "Do not breathe too deep." They stopped at her cage. The lock clicked. The door swung outward and light spilled in from a torch too bright. It made her squint. Hands grabbed her upper arms. She fought. Her body remembered how, even if her mind did not. She threw her weight back, drove an elbow behind her, and felt it strike something soft. A grunt. For one fierce second, she thought she could break free. The collar tightened. Her vision sparkled. Her muscles softened like wax. She sagged, caught by their hands, dragged out anyway. She did not cry. She bit the inside of her cheek until she tasted blood, just to have something that belonged to her. They marched her down a corridor lined with more cages. Some were empty. Some held figures that did not move. The smell of suppressants burned her nose, sharp herbs layered over fear. On the far wall, a banner hung like a joke, silk embroidered with a crest she did not recognize. A crown, a crescent moon, and a crack through the middle. A door opened. Noise poured out. She was led into a hall that felt too grand for what it contained. It was an auction chamber disguised as a ballroom, chandeliers above, polished wood beneath, but rows of seating arranged like a theater for hunger. People looked down from balconies as if they were gods, and she was a lesson. A dais stood at the front, a block of stone beside it, like a pedestal for meat. Saielit inhaled despite herself and instantly regretted it. Alpha scent layered the air, different strains, different beasts, all restrained by manners so thin she could see the teeth underneath. Do not scent, she thought wildly, staring at the sign again in her mind. Do not scent. But her scent kept pulsing, a beacon she could not dim. A man in a crimson coat stepped onto the dais, smiling with his mouth and not his eyes. He spread his hands as if blessing the room. Honored patrons. Tonight we have weapons, we have servants, we have rare blood, he announced. And we have an Omega with an unstable call. The crowd stirred. Unstable, defective, those words again, bring her forward. Hands shoved her onto the stone block, the room tilted, faces blurred. The caller whispered her name like a prayer. Saielit. She lifted her chin. If she had to be seen, she would not be seen as broken. The auctioneer leaned closer, voice dropping into a thrill, marked as defective. Do not scent, he read from a parchment, and laughter rippled, quick and cruel. But I assure you, the warning is not for her protection. It is for yours. A few alphas chuckled. One shifted in his seat, shoulders rolling as if his beast woke to listen. Another licked his lips, eyes too bright. Then the room quieted, not because the auctioneer demanded it, but because something changed on the balcony. Someone had arrived. She felt it before she saw him. The air tightened, as if every scent molecule had turned to face a single direction. The alphas near the front went still, not in submission, but in the wary attention predators give to a storm. She looked up. On the highest balcony stood an alpha who did not lean forward like the others. He stood straight, hands resting on the railing, still as carved stone. His hair was dark, his face hard in a way that had nothing to do with cruelty and everything to do with endurance. His eyes were the color of a thunderhead when lightning is about to strike. Varkhion Calder, someone whispered near her. Like a name that should not be said in a place like this. Beside him lounged another man, too elegant for the stink of cages. He smiled as if this were all a private joke. His gaze slid over her with practiced ease, then lingered at her throat. Arendor Seventer, another voice murmured, 2 alphas, 2 different kinds of danger. The auctioneer began calling numbers, starting low, climbing fast. Hands rose. Coins clinked. Promises were made with a lift of the chin. Saielit tried not to listen. She could not stop listening. When Varkhion finally moved, it was not to raise a hand. He breathed in, just that. A quiet inhale, controlled, almost gentle. The hall fell silent as if the sound had slapped everyone at once. Sailit's legs weakened. Her body responded with humiliating honesty, a tremor in her thighs, a rush of warmth to her skin. Her scent spiked, brightening like flame. She swayed. The men holding her tightened their grip. Someone laughed sharply. Look at her, one alpha called. She is already kneeling. Humiliation burned her face. Rage rose to meet it, but the collar pressed again, not pain, just insistence. The auctioneer's eyes shone with profit. You see, unstable call. A prize if you have the strength to hold it. Bid soared. A wolf shifter in gray stood and offered something that made the room hiss. A hawk shifter raised him. A snake shifter raised again, eyes slit and gleaming. Arendor lifted 2 fingers lazily. The number he spoke was quiet, but it cut through the room like a knife. The hall murmured. Sailit's gaze jumped back to Varkhion. He did not speak. He did not raise his hand. He simply watched her, and she could not look away. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into weather. Then, at the last moment, a new voice rang out, calm as law. The regent bids. The room snapped to attention. An older man stepped forward from the shadow of a private alcove. He wore dark velvet and a chain of office across his chest that looked like it could strangle a kingdom. His hair was silver, his face smooth in a way that suggested magic, not youth. His eyes were pale, almost gentle. Kuras Tar Vale, the regent. The name carried the weight of doors closing. The auctioneer's smile widened until it looked painful. A noble purchase. For the palace. Relief moved through the crowd in a strange wave. Disappointment, too. People had wanted to watch an Omega ruin someone tonight. The regent buying her was like a lid placed over boiling water. Sold, the auctioneer declared. The gavel struck. Saielit heart lurched. Palace. Better than a private cage, she told herself. Better than Arendor's smile. Better than being passed between hands. But the caller whispered again, and this time it felt like laughter. They dragged her down from the block. The crowd resumed breathing. Varkhion's eyes remained on her as she was led away. He did not look triumphant. He looked grim, as if he had just watched a fire catch. Outside, the night air slapped her face with cold. A carriage waited, black and plain, guarded by soldiers with runes on their gauntlets. She was thrown inside, the door shut. Darkness swallowed her, broken only by a faint rune glow from her collar. The carriage moved, wheels rattling, horses snorting. Saielit pressed her forehead to the wall and tried to steady her breathing. Her scent was still too bright. She could feel it lingering on her skin like a sheen. Across from her, someone sat in the shadows. She had not heard them enter. "Do not speak," a voice said softly. "Not in here." "Who are you?" she demanded, though her throat felt too small. "A servant." "A warning," the voice replied. "They said palace, but it is not the palace you think. They are taking you under it." "Under it," Saielit repeated, her pulse quickening. "Laboratory," the voice said, and the word landed like a stone in her stomach. A laboratory under the palace. The carriage hit a rut. Saielit grabbed the bench. When she looked back, the shadow across from her was gone, as if it had never been there. No door had opened. Her breath caught. The collar tightened lightly, a comforting touch from a monster. Saielit. Hours or minutes later, the carriage stopped. Doors opened. Torchlight poured in. They pulled her out into a courtyard that should have smelled like gardens and wealth. Instead, it smelled like iron and bitter herbs. Suppressant smoke drifted in thin ribbons from braziers shaped like snarling beasts. Even the statues looked like they were guarding secrets. She was marched through corridors where carpets tried to hide the sound of boots. She was shown no windows. Only stone, runes, and doors that looked too thick for ordinary rooms. At last, they brought her into a chamber lined with mirrors. A man waited there, robes marked with sigils. His hands were stained faintly blue, as if he had been handling ink that was not ink. "Stand still," he said, voice dry. Saielit tried to step back. The collar pulled her forward with a tightness that was almost polite. The man gestured at the mirror. She faced herself. She looked like someone who had been drowned and dragged out. Hair tangled, eyes too bright with fear, lips bitten raw, a bruise blooming at her arm where hands had held her. Then she saw her back. The mirror had been angled. A mark sat between her shoulder blades. A crescent moon cracked, not a tattoo. Brand, slightly raised, pale as scar tissue. The crack through it looked like a wound that had tried and failed to heal. Her stomach twisted. "What is that?" The robed man's eyes glittered. "A brood seal," he said. "Proof of origin." "Origin," Saielit echoed. She did not like how the word tasted. "Series," the man corrected, as if she had used the wrong term for a tool. "You are one of a set." Sailit's head rang. Memories tried to rise, but each one slid away as if her mind had been scrubbed. "Where am I?" she demanded. "What do you want?" The man smiled faintly. "We want to know what you are." Two guards stepped closer. One held a tray of vials, the other held a ledger. Sailit's vision tunneled. She turned, searching for an exit. There was a door. Of course there was a door. She ran for it. Her hand hit the handle. The wall breathed. That was the only way her mind could explain it. The stone seemed to inhale, runes flaring, and a pressure wave pushed her backward. Not a shove of force, but a soft returning, like hands guiding a sleepwalker back to bed. She stumbled, caught herself, tried again. The same invisible breath. The collar tightened just enough to make her nauseous. She backed away, shaking. The corridor itself was a cage. "Good," the robed man said. "The wards recognize you. That saves time." They led her out. Past doors that hummed. Past a staircase that went down and down until the air turned colder and wet. At the bottom was a hall that smelled like animal fur and blood scrubbed from stone. A cage sat in the center. not like hers at the market. This one was reinforced with rune bands and silver lattice, built for something that could tear steel. Saielit mouth went dry. What is that for? A voice answered from behind her, calm and low, for the beast inside the man. She turned. Varkhion Calder stood in the doorway. Up close, he was worse. Not because he was more beautiful than anyone had a right to be in a place like this, though he was, in a harsh way. Worse because his control was so perfect it made her want to test it. His presence pressed against her senses like a wall, and behind it something watched. He was not shifted, not fully. Yet she could see it in the faint sharpness of his canines, the way his pupils narrowed when he looked at her throat. He looked at her as if he recognized her. Sailit's skin prickled. She had never met him, she was sure of it, and yet something in her chest tugged, a thread drawn tight. The robed man stepped forward, deferential. Lord Varkhion, you know why you are called. Varkhion's gaze did not leave Saielit. I was called because you are reckless. The scientist's mouth tightened. The regent requires proof. Remove the collar. Observe who she draws. Varkhion's jaw clenched. If I remove it, you will not survive her scent. Saielit stared at him, not survive. Was that arrogance or warning? A new voice drifted in, smooth as velvet. Do it. Kura's tar veil entered with 2 guards at his back. He did not look like a man who walked into underground halls often, yet he carried himself as if the stone had been built around him. His pale eyes flicked over Saielit like a scholar assessing a specimen. Remove it, he repeated, tone mild. We are prepared. Prepared with what? Saielit wanted to spit. With chains. With knives. Varkhion's hands curled at his sides. He looked at Kura's with something like contempt, but he bowed his head slightly. As you command. He stepped closer to Saielit. She backed up until her calves touched the edge of the reinforced cage. Nowhere left. Do not fight me, Varkhion said softly. Why? She hissed. So you can own me too. His eyes flickered, storm dark. I do not want to own you. That made her angrier, for reasons she could not explain. His hand rose toward her neck. Saielit flinched. Her body betrayed her again, not only fear but heat, a dangerous spark at his nearness. His scent reached her, clean and wild and electric, like rain striking dry stone. His fingers touched the rune collar. It shivered beneath his hand like a living thing recognizing a stronger predator. He pressed his thumb to a seam. The collar loosened. For a heartbeat, Saielit felt naked, not in body, in soul, as if every wall inside her had been removed. Then the collar fell. Her scent erupted. It was not a gentle bloom. It was fire racing through a hall of dry timber. It poured from her skin, sweet and sharp and impossible, laced with something ancient that made the runes on the walls flare in response. One guard gasped and dropped to his knees. Another snarled and fought his own hands, nails lengthening as his beast surged forward. A third slammed his head against the wall as if pain could anchor him. The air filled with growls, choked and desperate. Sailit's legs buckled. The scent coming out of her was too much, like light blasting out of her pores. She could not pull it back. She did not know how. Someone lunged. Varkhion moved. He stepped between her and the hall like a shield made of flesh and will. His scent rolled outward, a storm front meeting wildfire. It did not erase her smell. It covered it, pressed it down, forced it into a contained circle around her. The guards froze. Their beasts, half risen, hesitated as if they had met the edge of a cliff. Saielit inhaled Varkhion's scent and felt a horrifying thing. Safe. Not safe in the way a locked door is safe. Safe in the way a blade in skilled hands is safe to the person behind it. Her throat tightened. She hated that her body trusted him more than it trusted her own mind. Kuraz watched, delighted. Excellent, he murmured. She works. Saielit looked at him, and for the first time she saw what he was. Not a ruler, not a caretaker. A man who saw living beings as mechanisms. Put it back, Varkhion said, voice rough. No, Kuraz replied, not yet. I want her to feel what she is. I want her to remember. Remember what? Saielit thought wildly. She had nothing to remember. Only the whispering collar and a name that felt like a knife and a kiss. Her vision blurred. The hall swam, sense too thick. Varkhion reached back without looking, his hand finding her wrist. His touch was hot. "Breathe with me," he said, low enough that only she could hear. "In, hold, out." Saielit tried. Her lungs trembled. She matched him anyway. The scent eased, fraction by fraction, like a tide retreating. Varkhion's thumb brushed over her pulse, not possessive, anchoring, a warning and a promise at once. Kuraz finally lifted a hand. Enough, return her to her room, document everything. The scientist bowed quickly, almost eager. As the guards moved, Varkhion's hand tightened on Sailit's wrist. "Look at me," he said. She did, startled. His eyes had changed. Not fully, but the pupils were narrower, the iris brighter, like lightning trapped behind glass. His beast was close to the surface, held there by sheer force. "You are not broken," he told her, voice steady. "You are unbound." That sounded worse. They dragged her away again. Corridors, doors, runes humming like nerves. She was placed in a room with a bed too soft to be kind. A wash basin, a heavy chair. No windows. The moment the door closed, she ran to it and pounded her fists against it until her knuckles burned. Nothing. She slid to the floor, shaking. In the silence, the absence of the collar felt like phantom pain. She reached for her neck anyway. The air was thick with suppressant herbs seeping through vents. It dulled her senses, but it could not erase what had happened. She worked, Kuraz had said, like a weapon. She pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to squeeze away the image of guards dropping to their knees at her scent, and the way Varkhion had stepped in front of her as if it were instinct. Night came without a window to prove it. The light in the corridor dimmed. The palace beneath the palace settled into a quiet that felt like a breath held too long. Then the walls began to whisper. Not a sound from outside. From inside the stone. Lunar not, the walls breathed, faint and insistent. Saielit jolted up, heart hammering. Who is there? Lunar not. A memory twitched behind her eyes. A crack in a moon, a crown of bone, a beast stepping out of light. She backed away from the wall. The whisper followed her anyway, crawling through the room like fog. She turned, searching, and saw the vent near the floor. Something white was tucked into it. She dropped to her knees and reached in. Her fingers brushed paper. She pulled it out and unfolded it with trembling hands. "Do not trust alphas. They want your mark." Signed beneath in tight script. Mavrina Shiel. Saielit stared until the letters blurred. A beta, she thought. The handwriting was too calm to belong to a frightened servant. A soft knock came at her door. Saielit held the note behind her back and did not answer. Another knock, then a woman's voice, quiet. "If you shout, they will sedate you. If you stay silent, you might live long enough to choose." Sailit's breath caught. Choose what? The lock clicked. The door opened just enough for a woman to slip in. She was plain dressed, hair braided close, eyes watchful. Beta scent, muted and steady. No heat of alpha, no lure of omega, just a person, and the simple reality of that nearly made Saielit cry. "Mavrina," Saielit whispered. The woman nodded once. "You got the note. Good, burn it later." Saielit stood, keeping distance. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I have watched girls like you die," Mavrina said, and her voice did not shake. "And because if you are what they think you are the only thing that might crack this place open." Sailit's stomach tightened. "They think I am what?" Mavrina stepped closer and held out a folded scrap, worn and smudged. A map. "Lower tunnels," she said, "old routes. Some lead to drains. Some lead to rooms the Regent does not admit exist." "Regent," Saielit repeated. "Kuraz." Mavrina's mouth tightened. "He calls it a project. He calls it peace. He calls it the herd." Saielit stared. "Herd." "Breeding," Mavrina said bluntly. "Raising omegas with engineered calls so alphas will bind to whatever pack Kuraz chooses. Politics written into blood." Sailit's throat burned. "No. Yes," Mavrina said. "And you are not the first. You are just the one they brought to the surface and sold in public because they wanted the world to see you as an object before you ever saw yourself as a person. Saielit hands curled into fists. The brand on her back seemed to throb. Ceres, she whispered. Mavrina nodded once. Ceres, brood seal, whatever word helps them sleep. There are others, below, alive, Saielit asked. Mavrina hesitated, and the hesitation was answer enough. Saielit swayed. She grabbed the chair to steady herself. Mavrina caught her elbow. Listen to me. Your scent is not normal. It does not behave. That is why the collar was alive. It was not just to restrain you. It was to keep your call from latching onto the wrong alpha too soon. Saielit pulled away. Wrong alpha. Mavrina's gaze sharpened. They want you to be marked under their terms. Your mark is leverage. If an alpha bonds to you, Kuras can use that bond like a chain. Saielit remembered Varkhion's shield scent and felt sick with confusion. Do not trust alphas, she repeated, reading her own note in her mind. Mavrina's expression softened slightly. Not all alphas are the same, but even the best of them can be turned into a weapon if your bond is twisted the right way. A sound in the corridor, faint footsteps. Mavrina's eyes flashed. I should go. Tomorrow they will test you. Test me how? Saielit demanded, voice rising. Compatibility, Mavrina said. They will bring alphas. They will watch your response. They will punish you if your body chooses someone they did not approve. Sailit's skin went cold. She could not stop her body from reacting. She had already learned that. Before Mavrina slipped out, Saielit grabbed her wrist. Why tell me now? Because tomorrow you will be tempted to do something stupid, Mavrina said, meeting her gaze. You will be tempted to beg, to cling, to offer yourself for safety. Do not. If you feel that pull, remember that it was designed. Saielit released her. Mavrina left like a shadow, door closing with a soft click. Saielit stood in the middle of the room and forced herself to breathe slowly, the way Varkhion had taught her in that one urgent moment. In, hold. Out. Her scent stayed quieter. Morning came in the form of footsteps and a tray of tasteless food. Then came guards. No collar this time, just suppressant bracelets that tingled against her wrists, dulling her senses. They led her to a smaller chamber lined with runes that looked like teeth. A table, chairs, a viewing window where silhouettes moved, watching. 3 men waited. Sailit's heart slammed against her ribs. The first had pale hair and a gaze like winter. His scent carried a high, clean edge, like feathers and thin air. Hawk shifter, her instincts supplied. The second leaned against the wall with a smile too slow. His scent was cool and coiling, like crushed leaves and stone warmed by sun. Serpent shifter. The third stepped forward, boots silent. He wore a ring with a dark crest. His eyes gleamed with amusement. Arendor Seventer. Sailit's stomach dropped. He smiled as if they were old friends. Well, there you are. Do not speak to her, the scientist ordered from behind the window. Arendor lifted his hands, harmless. Of course, I only wish to breathe the same air. Sailit's skin prickled. He was hunting, not with claws, with breath. The Hawk Alpha took 1 step closer and inhaled carefully. His expression flickered, a flash of hunger quickly masked. The Serpent Alpha's smile widened. He was less careful. He breathed in deeper, eyelids lowering, and Saielit felt her own scent jump, responding against her will. She clenched her fists. No, stay down. Her scent trembled, fought, then surged anyway, pulsing in time with her heart. The room tightened. Arendor's gaze slid to her throat. He breathed in and his pupils narrowed with interest. Oh, he murmured, unable to stop himself. You are not defective. You are, do not finish that, Saielit snapped, voice shaking. Arendor's smile sharpened. Afraid of words, or afraid of what you will become if someone names you correctly. The Hawk Alpha's jaw flexed. His eyes fixed on Saielit with a terrible focus, like he could snatch her out of the air. The Serpent Alpha's nails lengthened slightly, then retracted. Control, but strained. Sailit's breath came faster. Her scent kept swelling and shrinking, searching for something it could not find. Then she understood. Her body was not responding to any of them the way it had responded in the auction hall. It was responding to absence. Her scent reached past these alphas, past the runes, past the stone, as if calling a storm that was not in the room. The room seemed to tilt. The scientists behind the window murmured, confused. Arendor's eyes narrowed. "Who are you calling, little Omega?" Saielit lips parted. She did not mean to speak, but the truth slid out like a confession. Varkhion. The name hit the air like a spark. The hawk alpha stiffened. The serpent alpha hissed softly, not with a mouth, but with his breath. Arendor's smile vanished, replaced by something cold. "Interesting," he said quietly. "Too interesting." Sailit's vision blurred, her pulse hammered. Her sense surged again, harder, desperate. The runes on the wall flared as if answering. Someone behind the window swore. Saielit tried to step back. The floor rose to meet her. She fell into darkness. In the dark, the moon cracked open. She saw it clearly, a great silver disk splitting down the center, light spilling from the wound. From the crack, something stepped out, enormous and patient, fur like night, eyes like a crown. It looked at her as if it had been waiting a very long time. Lunar not, it breathed, and the words were not sound but command. Saielit tried to run, but her feet sank into ash. The beast lowered its head to her neck. Not biting, not yet, claiming with the promise of teeth. She woke with a gasp, warmth. Not the damp warmth of underground halls, but a steadier heat like a hearth. She blinked, disoriented. She lay on a bed that smelled like storm rain and clean fur. The room was larger than hers, darker, lit by a single lamp. Weapons hung on one wall, not decorative. Runes traced the doorframe like scars. On the floor by the door sat Varkhion Calder. He was not sleeping. He sat with his back to the wall, knees drawn up, forearms resting loosely, like a guard, like a prisoner of his own vigilance. Saielit pushed herself up, breath catching. "Why am I here?" Varkhion's gaze lifted to her slowly. "You fainted. They were going to strap you down." Sailit's throat tightened. "They still will. Not if I stand in the way," he said. She stared at him, trying to hate him for being an alpha, for being part of this, for making her body react. The hate would not settle. Something else kept pushing through it, a treacherous relief. "Why?" she asked softly despite herself. "Why do you care?" Varkhion was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, carefully. "I do not care in the way you fear," he said. "I am not your owner." That word again. Owner. Sailit's hands trembled. "Then what are you?" His eyes darkened. "Your barrier." "Barrier," she repeated, confused. "From what?" Varkhion's jaw tightened. "From you." Anger flared, sharp and immediate. "From me? I am the one locked in cages. I am the one being sold. How am I the danger?" "Because you do not know what is inside your blood," Varkhion said, voice low. "Kuraz does. He has been digging for it for years. He does not want you, not as a person. He wants what wakes when your scent flares." Saielit swallowed. The dream beast's eyes flashed in her memory. "I am just an Omega," she whispered. Varkhion's gaze held hers. No. The simplicity of his refusal hit her harder than any insult. She swung her legs off the bed. "I want out." "You cannot," he said. Saielit stood unsteady. "Watch me." She moved toward the door. Varkhion rose in one smooth motion, too fast for a man who had been sitting. He did not block her with his body. He blocked her with presence, sent rolling out like a warning to her instincts. "The guard outside will stop you," he said. "The regent will punish you. And the next time you flare like you did today, the wrong alpha will tear through the runes to get to you." "Wrong alpha," Saielit repeated, remembering Mavrina's warning. Varkhion's eyes flicked to her throat, then away, as if looking there hurt him. "If you want to live," he said, "you must play the role they wrote for you." Sailit's voice cracked. "What role?" "The palace jewel," he answered. "The grateful Omega. The prize that proves Kuraz can control the wild." Sailit's nails dug into her palms. "I would rather die." Varkhion's expression hardened. "You say that now. You will not say it when they trigger your heat and parade you in front of wolves. Saielit went still. Heat. Trigger. It can be done, he said, and the bitterness in his voice made her believe him. With runes, with herbs, with that collar. With the anchor you cannot see. Sailit's breath came short. She could not let that happen. She could not let her body be turned against her again. Then teach me, she said, surprising herself. Varkhion's eyes narrowed slightly. Teach you what? How to control it, Saielit said. My scent, my pulse, whatever this is. If I am a weapon, then I want my hands on the hilt. Silence. Then Varkhion nodded once. Sit, he said. Saielit sat on the edge of the bed, spine rigid. Varkhion stood a few steps away, giving her space as if space mattered in a place like this. Watch my chest, he said. Copy the rhythm. He inhaled slowly, held, exhaled longer than he inhaled. Saielit followed. Her lungs trembled at first, but then steadied. Again, he said. They did it again and again. Breath by breath, the tightness in her skin eased. Her scent, which had been anxious even in sleep, settled into something quieter, less broadcast. Good, Varkhion murmured. The praise should have felt like a chain. Instead, it felt like water. Saielit hated that too. Why are you so good at this? She asked, voice low. At controlling beasts, yours and mine. Varkhion's gaze went distant for half a breath. Because I failed once, he said. Failed how? He did not answer. He looked at the door, listening to something she could not hear. Saielit leaned forward, suddenly desperate for any scrap of truth. Who are you to Kuraz? A weapon, Varkhion said flatly. A shield, a warning. Whatever he needs me to be. And you accept that. Varkhion's eyes flashed. I accept what keeps people alive. People, Saielit repeated, not yourself. His mouth tightened. I am already lost. The words landed like a wound. Sailit's chest tightened. She could not explain the ache that followed. She barely knew him. She should not care. Yet when he turned his head slightly, as if the movement could hide emotion, she saw exhaustion behind his control. A man holding a storm inside his bones. Footsteps approached. A knock at the door. Lord Varkhion, a guard's voice called. The regent summons you. Varkhion's gaze returned to Saielit. You will be taken back to your room soon. Do not provoke them. Sailit's laugh came out bitter. I provoke them by breathing. Then breathe like I taught you, he said, and for the first time his voice softened. Hold your scent close. Keep your eyes steady. Do not let them see you panic. Saielit swallowed. What if they bring Arendor again? Varkhion's scent sharpened, lightning tightening the air. If he touches you, Varkhion said, I will break his hand. Saielit stared. A possessive threat or protection. The difference mattered, but her body did not know how to separate them. Varkhion seemed to realize what he had said. His jaw flexed. He looked away. I am not your mate, he said roughly. Do not mistake my anger for a claim. Sailit's cheeks warmed. I did not. But the lie sat between them heavy. Varkhion opened the door and spoke to the guard in a low voice. Saielit did not catch the words, only the tone, controlled and edged with steel. Minutes later, she was escorted back. The day passed in a haze of food she could not taste and silence she could not trust. She practiced breathing until her ribs ached. She stared at the cracked crescent brand in the mirror until she felt like she might fall into it. Then, as evening approached, servants arrived with fabric and pins and a mask. A beta woman held up a dress that shimmered like dark water. The regent invites you to the masquerade, she said, eyes downcast. You will be presented to the nobility. Sailit's stomach dropped, presented. A second servant held out the mask. It was silver, veined with cracks like broken moonlight. A symbol, the servant said softly, almost apologetic. The broken moon, your theme. Sailit's fingers tightened around the edge of the mask. It felt cold, like a coin placed over a dead eye. They dressed her carefully, like a doll meant to be admired and envied. They brushed her hair until it shone. They dabbed suppressant herbs at her pulse points, but the herbs could not erase her. They could only blur her edges. When they were done, Saielit barely recognized herself. The mirror showed a young woman with a silver cracked moon over her face and a dress that clung in all the wrong ways, emphasizing that she had been designed to be looked at. She hated the heat that rose to her skin, not from desire, but from exposure. Guards escorted her up, through corridors that grew brighter, air fresher, until at last she saw a tall set of doors and heard music beyond. Laughter, glass, perfume, predators pretending to be civilized. The doors opened. The ballroom was a sea of masks, gold animals, black feathers, painted fangs, women in gowns that rustled like wings, men with collars of fur and jewels, their scents layered with expensive suppressants that only made their true nature more obvious. Saielit stepped in, and for a moment the room seemed to inhale. Even suppressed, her scent was strange. People turned, heads angled, nostrils flared behind masks. Whispers began like rain. Omega, defective, no, not defective, the regent's prize, the one from the auction. Saielit forced herself to walk. Breath in, hold out. A hand touched her elbow. She flinched, turning. Kura's tar veil stood beside her, masked in pale porcelain. His eyes were visible through the cutouts, calm and pleased. "Smile," he murmured. "You are safe here." Safe, she thought, like a bird safe in a gilded cage. Kura's guided her forward into the center of the ballroom. Music swelled, then softened, as if the musicians sensed the shift of attention. Nobles approached, masks glittering. Compliments slid from their mouths like silk over knives. How delicate, how rare, how brave of the regent to take responsibility. Saielit answered with nods and practiced politeness, the words tasting like ash. She kept breathing. Across the room, she felt it. Storm scent. Varkhion stood near a pillar, dressed in black, his mask minimal, carved like a shadow. He watched the crowd as if measuring how many he would need to kill to get her out. When his gaze found hers, something in her chest settled. She hated that too. Then a new scent curled at her back, cool and sweet like poison in wine. Arendor's voice came near her ear. "You wear cracks beautifully," he murmured. Saielit turned sharply. Arendor wore a mask of glossy black feathers that hid half his face. His smile showed anyway. He was too close. His breath brushed her cheek. "Step back," she said. "Or what?" he asked softly. "You will scream, you will flare. And every alpha here will learn exactly what your warning sign meant." Sailit's pulse kicked. Her scent trembled in response, frightened. Arendor's eyes glinted. "There it is. That impossible note. You are not just an Omega. You are a key." "I am not yours," Saielit whispered. Arendor's smile widened, but it did not reach his eyes. "I could steal you, tonight. I could lift you out of Kuraz's hands and make you mine. But you must choose me." "Choose," Saielit thought, remembering Mavrina. "Choose not from fear." Arendor leaned closer, inhaling, and Saielit saw it clearly then. He was not breathing her in like someone intoxicated by a person. He was tasting a lock. He was hunting the shape of her scent. Sailit's stomach turned. A new presence cut between them like a blade sliding into a sheath. Varkhion stepped in with quiet violence. "Arendor," Varkhion said, voice polite. "Move." Arendor's smile turned bright, too bright. "Lord Varkhion, how protective. Is that wise with such a fragile prize?" Varkhion's gaze was a storm held in a human face. "She is not a prize." Arendor's eyes flicked to Saielit. "Then what is she to you?" Varkhion did not answer. His silence was an answer anyway. Sailit's breath hitched. Arendor chuckled softly and stepped back, hands raised. "Forgive me. I was only admiring." He vanished into the crowd like a shadow with a smile. Sailit's knees felt weak. Varkhion did not touch her. He simply stood close enough that his scent could cover hers, a shield no one else in the room seemed able to push through. "Do not wander alone," he said, barely moving his lips. Sailit's throat tightened. "Are you following me?" "I am trying to keep you alive," he said. Saielit looked at Kuraz across the room, speaking to nobles, laughing softly. A ruler in a mask, a man in control. Sailit's voice dropped. He wants me to be marked. Varkhion's jaw clenched. Yes, soon. Varkhion's eyes flicked upward. Saielit followed his gaze. The ceiling was painted with moons and stars. At the center, a rune circle was embedded, subtle enough to pass as decoration. The rune circle began to glow. Saielit skin prickled. The air changed, thickening, as if the room itself had begun to exhale. Music faltered. One instrument went silent, then another, as the musicians looked up, confused. A soft sound drifted down from the ceiling, like petals falling. They were pale at first. Then Saielit saw the red. Petals soaked in blood, drifting like slow snow. A woman screamed. Someone shouted, "It has begun." Sailit's body jolted as if a hand had gripped her spine. Heat slammed into her, sudden and wrong, not a natural rise but a forced ignition. Her breath caught. Her skin flushed under the dress. Her scent surged, wild and bright, fighting against suppressants like a trapped animal. "No," she whispered, panicked. "No, no." Varkhion's hand closed around her wrist. "Run," he said. He pulled her through the crowd. Nobles recoiled as if a storm passed among them. Some alphas inhaled too deep and their eyes flashed, hunger cracking through their masks. Saielit stumbled, heat building in her blood, a spiral tightening lower in her belly, not pleasure but an unbearable need that felt like pain. Tears blurred her vision. "They want to break you," Varkhion said, voice harsh. "They want to make you beg." Sailit's throat burned. "I cannot stop it." "Yes, you can," Varkhion said. "Not alone." He shoved open a door into a dark corridor and dragged her into a forgotten wing where the air was cold and the walls were older, runes worn like ancient scars. Her scent flared again, desperate. Varkhion's scent slammed down over it like thunder, pressing it inward, containing it. Saielit clung to his arm without meaning to, fingers biting into his sleeve. Her whole body trembled. Varkhion stopped at a door marked with runes that made Sailit's eyes ache to look at. He pressed his palm to it. The runes flared, then softened. The door opened. Inside was a small chamber etched with circles of silver and old script. The air smelled of stone and something faintly sweet, like a memory of warmth. Saielit staggered in. The moment she crossed the threshold, the heat inside her hesitated, like a beast meeting a fence. "What is this place?" she gasped. "A room built to drown an Omega Queen's heat," Varkhion said, voice low. "Long ago." Sailit's pulse stuttered. "Why do you know that?" Varkhion's eyes flashed, lightning bright. "Because my beast remembers what my mouth is forbidden to say." A pounding came from the corridor. Shouts. Guards. Sailit's breath turned ragged. "They are coming." Varkhion stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that his presence filled her senses. "Listen to me," he said. "If they find you like this, you will not survive." Sailit's vision blurred with heat and fear. The door shook under another blow. Varkhion's voice dropped to a vow. "Breathe with me, right now. And do not let your body choose them." The runes on the walls began to glow as if waking. The pounding grew louder. And Saielit felt the crack in the moon inside her widen, just enough to let something huge breathe through. "Do not move. Do not make a sound. If they smell you like this, they will tear the corridor apart." Saielit pressed her palms to the silver-traced wall and tried to breathe the way Varkhion had taught her, but the heat was not listening. It climbed in her blood with a cruel intelligence, turning every heartbeat into a pull. The runes in the chamber glowed in slow rings, as if the room itself was counting her breaths, trying to drag her back from the edge. The pounding on the door hit again. Wood groaned. Dust shook loose from the frame. "Open in the name of the regent." Varkhion stood between Saielit and the door, shoulders squared, one hand braced on the rune ring at his wrist like he was holding himself together. His scent filled the chamber, storm rain and wolf fur, a shield that wrapped around her like an invisible cloak. "They will break it," Saielit whispered. "They will break the door." "Let them try," Varkhion murmured. "Focus. In, hold, out," she tried, air in. A pause that hurt, air out. Her scent shivered, pulled toward the corridor anyway, drawn by the hungry pressure outside. Another hit, the latch cracked. Saielit flinched and the heat surged harder, rushing up her spine like fire. She made a small sound, half gasp, half sob, and hated herself for it. Her body wanted to bend, to plead, to find any alpha and cling. The thought felt like a hook under her ribs. Varkhion turned his head slightly, watching her without leaving his position. His eyes were too sharp, the storm in them brightening. "I know," he said. "I know what it feels like. Do not let it choose for you." "How?" Sailit's voice broke. "How do I stop something that is not mine?" The runes flashed as the door shuddered. A crack appeared along the frame. Then the wall beside Saielit clicked. A narrow stone panel slid open with a soft grind, a hidden seam revealing a square of darkness low to the floor. A hand reached out. Saielit jerked back, heart slamming. A familiar beta scent slipped into the room like a quiet promise. Mavrina crawled through the opening, hair loosened, cheeks flushed from exertion. She held a small vial wrapped in cloth. "Drink," she said, breathless. "Now." Varkhion did not move from the door, but his scent sharpened, protective and wary. "What is it?" "Not poison," Mavrina snapped. "Not for her. It is a sight elixir. It will show her the chains. She needs to see them if she is going to survive the Regent." Saielit stared at the vial. The liquid inside was pale, almost clear, with a faint silver swirl like moonlight caught in water. "I cannot," Saielit whispered. "If I take something and it makes this worse." "It will not," Mavrina said. "It will hurt, but it will not make you beg. And if you do not drink it, they will drag you back into that ballroom and you will become their lesson." The door cracked again. Voices spilled through the gap, excited now, scenting. Varkhion's jaw flexed. He did not look at Saielit. "Do it." The permission hit Saielit strangely, like being handed a blade. She took the vial. Her fingers shook so hard the glass clicked against her teeth. She swallowed. The liquid was cold, then suddenly hot, as if it ignited behind her eyes. Her vision blurred, then sharpened in a way that made her gasp. The room was the same and not the same. Colors deepened, shadows stretched. Scents became visible, threads. They hung in the air like strands of glowing hair, thin and endless, connecting people to invisible anchors. Some were gold, some red, some sickly green, some black. They trembled with every breath and thought, vibrating with control. Saielit stumbled back, pressing her hands to her mouth. Mavrina's threads were few, pale, frayed at the ends, the kind of lines a powerless person has when she is used by everyone and owned by no one. The guards outside the door were webbed in thick red lines that sank into the stone like roots. Their beasts strained against them, tugging, but the threads held. Sailit's gaze snapped to Varkhion. For a heartbeat, she could not breathe. Threads clung to him too. Many. Dark, heavy lines that wrapped his ribs, his throat, his wrists. They looked like chains made of smoke. But they were not anchored. They were torn. Each line ended in a jagged edge like a rope snapped under strain. The ends twitched, searching for what they had lost, failing to reconnect. Sailit's mouth opened, soundless. Mavrina's eyes flicked to her face. "You see it," she said. "Good." Sailit's vision swam. "Varkhion. The chains on him are broken." Mavrina's expression went tight, almost grim. "That is why he is dangerous to Kuraz. That is why Kuraz keeps him close. A weapon that already survived the leash once is the only thing that can cut it again." Sailit's throat tightened. "You said survive. You mean he was bound, then freed." Varkhion's shoulders rose with a slow inhale. He spoke without turning. "Do not ask." Saielit took a shaky step toward him, drawn by the torn threads, by the question that burned hotter than her heat. "How did you break them?" He did not answer. The pounding stopped for half a second. Then came a different sound, a low chant, voices layered. Runes. Doorframe began to glow. Mavrina swore under her breath. "They are going to force it open with a seal." Sailit's heat surged, sensing the danger, sensing the alphas, desperate for a bond it could bite into. Her scent swelled, luminous and wild, pressing against Varkhion's storm shield. Varkhion's hand tightened at his side. His nails lengthened slightly, then retracted as he forced control back into his skin. "Look at me," he said, finally turning. Saielit lifted her eyes. The threads around her were worse. A thick silver cord ran from her chest, straight through the walls, stretching upward toward the palace. It pulsed when her heart pulsed. It did not belong to her. She gasped. "There is something in me that is not me." Mavrana nodded. "Anchor line. The collar was not the leash. It was the lock that kept you from seeing the leash." Sailit's mouth went dry. "Who holds it?" Mavrana's eyes flicked toward the ceiling as if she could see the regent through stone. "Kuraz." Sailit's stomach turned. Varkhion stepped closer, just enough that his scent filled her lungs. He did not touch her yet. His restraint felt like a vow. "Breathe," he said. "You are spiraling." "How can I not?" Saielit whispered. "He can pull my heat like a string." "Yes," Varkhion said. "That is why you must hold yourself where he cannot reach easily. In your mind, in your breath, in your choice." The chant outside rose. The rune on the door flared. Mavrana pushed Sailit's shoulders gently, guiding her toward the center circle of the chamber. "Stand in the silver ring. The room will dampen the flare. It was built for an Omega queen, and that matters. Old magic listens to old blood." Saielit stepped into the ring. The moment her bare foot crossed the silver line, the heat inside her hesitated again. Not gone, but slowed, as if the chamber had put a hand against her pulse. She trembled. The urge to cling did not disappear, but it became something she could look at without drowning. Varkhion watched her like he was watching a storm decide whether to break the horizon. Outside, the seal on the door snapped with a crackle. The latch gave. Varkhion's voice dropped low. "If they get in, I will shift. Half at least. I will be able to hold them back." Sailit's gaze locked onto the torn threads around him. "If you shift, can they control you?" He was silent for a beat, then quiet as a confession. "Not the way they used to. Used to." The words scraped her heart. The door burst inward. Two guards stumbled into the chamber, eyes wild behind their masks of discipline. They inhaled, and Saielit saw their threads twitch, yanked by Kuraz through stone. Their beasts surged forward, hungry, desperate. Then they hit the edge of Varkhion's scent. They froze like dogs meeting a bigger wolf. Varkhion's eyes flashed, and his voice went steel. "Out." One guard shook, fighting. The other took a step forward anyway, as if pulled by Sailit's scent more than ordered. His gaze dropped to her throat. His mouth parted, canines showing. Sailit's heat flared in response, a sick reflex that made her hate her own skin. Mavrana moved first. She threw a powder from her pocket into the guard's face. The powder flashed dull gray, and the guard gagged, stumbling back, eyes watering. The second guard snarled and raised his hand, runes glowing on his gauntlet. Varkhion stepped toward him. The air changed, thick with pressure. Varkhion's pupils narrowed, his canines lengthened. Lightning seemed to skitter along the skin of his forearms, faint patterns rising like tattoos made of stormlight. He did not fully shift. He did not need to. He grabbed the guard's wrist, twisted, and the rune gauntlet clattered to the floor. The guard cried out, more in humiliation than pain, and staggered back. Varkhion's voice was low, dangerous. "Tell Kuraz the room rejects his leash." The guards hesitated, then retreated, dragging the powder-blinded one with them. Door hung open, corridor beyond full of shadows and listening. For a few heartbeats, no one moved. Sailit's legs shook. The heat inside her trembled too, searching for a way around the silver ring. Mavrana exhaled. That bought seconds, not safety. Varkhion turned to Saielit. His gaze swept her face, then flicked to her throat and away, as if the sight of her pulse tempted something he refused to feed. "The elixir is wearing off," Mavrana warned. "The threads will fade." Saielit did not want them. The sight was terrifying, but it was truth. Varkhion stepped into the ring with her, careful, like he was crossing sacred ground. The moment his boot touched the silver line, the runes on the wall pulsed. His breath caught just once. Saielit saw it. The room recognizes you. Varkhion's jaw tightened. It remembers what I do not say. The heat rose again, pushed from outside now, like a hand turning a crank. Saielit gasped, folding slightly at the waist. Her scent surged. Varkhion's hand lifted, hovering near her hair, not touching yet. May I? Saielit could not form words. She nodded once. His fingers slid into her hair at the nape of her neck, gentle, anchoring. The touch sent a shiver through her that was not only heat. It was need and relief, and the forbidden sweetness of being held without being owned. Breathe, he murmured into her hair. Match me. Saielit pressed her forehead against his chest without thinking. His body was warm, solid. His heartbeat was steady, a drum she could follow out of the fire. In, hold, out, her lungs obeyed. His scent wrapped around her, storm and clean fur, and beneath it something older, something wounded. The silver ring glowed brighter under their feet. Mavrina stood near the door, watching the corridor with a knife in her hand that looked too small to matter. Her voice was tight. If Kuraz comes himself, we are dead. He will not come, Varkhion said, voice rough. Not yet. He will send others. Sailit's fingers curled in Varkhion's shirt. She felt the shame of it, the instinctive clutch. She tried to loosen her grip. Varkhion's hand tightened gently at her nape, not allowing her to pull away from what steadied her. Do not punish yourself for surviving. The words made her throat burn. The heat slammed again, more insistent. Sailit's knees buckled. Varkhion caught her before she fell, his arms sliding around her waist. He pulled her closer, still careful, still restrained, as if he was holding a lit candle near dry paper. His breath brushed her temple. They want you to break, do not. Sailit's voice came out raw, I do not want this. His arms tightened just for a heartbeat. Neither do I. The admission hit her like a shock. She pulled back enough to look at him. His eyes were bright, stormlight behind them, control stretched thin as wire. You want me, she whispered. Varkhion's jaw clenched. I want to protect you. That is not what I asked. For a heartbeat his gaze dropped to her mouth, then to the pulse at her throat. He shut his eyes as if the sight hurt. Yes, he said, and the word sounded like surrender. I want you. And I hate myself for it because wanting you is what Kuraz built into this place. Sailit's breath shook. Wanting can be mine too. Varkhion opened his eyes again. If you let it be mine, it becomes his. That is the trap. The heat rose, unstoppable now, but slowed by the ring. It did not knock her down. It circled her like a predator. Sailit's scent surged and then broke, spilling out in a pulse that made the corridor beyond the open door go silent. She heard a distant growl, far away, then another answering. Mavrina cursed. Your call is reaching them. Sailit's eyes widened. The whole palace. Varkhion leaned down and pressed a kiss to her forehead. It was not possessive. It was not a claim. It was a seal of calm, a vow pressed into skin. Sailit's body shuddered. Kiss did something the breathing could not. It made her feel chosen without being used. She swallowed. Your chains are broken, she whispered, the elixir still lingering enough that the image haunted her. How? Varkhion did not answer. His hand stroked once along her hair, then stilled as if he feared his own tenderness. Mavrina moved closer, voice urgent. The elixir gave you sight. Use it. When you feel the leash pull your heat, do not fight the heat first. Fight the order behind it. Imagine cutting the line. Sailit's eyes fluttered. Cutting the line, the silver cord in her vision pulsing into the stone. She focused on it, on the idea of it, even as the sight began to dim. The cord blurred, but the feeling of it remained like a pressure in her chest. She breathed, in, hold, out. The heat did not vanish, but it stopped rising for a moment. She felt the pull loosen just slightly, like a hand slipping on a rope. Varkhion went very still. He felt it too. You did that, he murmured. Sailit's voice was a whisper. I think I did. The room hummed. The runes flared brighter, then settled as if approving. Mavrina's eyes shone with fierce hope. Again, do it again. Saielit tried. She pictured the cord. She pictured it snapping like Varkhion's torn threads. Her chest tightened. The heat trembled. Then it surged, not upward, but inward, curling around her like a coil. Her scent sharpened, sweet and dangerous. Varkhion's nostrils flared. His hand at her nape tightened. His control creaked. Sailit's fingers slid up his forearm, seeking skin. She stopped herself, trembling. "If I touch you, will it start?" Varkhion's voice was rough, honest. "It might." Sailit's throat tightened. "I do not want it forced, not like this. But I cannot stand alone in it." Varkhion's eyes held hers, storm steady. "Then we stand together without crossing the line. We do not feed the leash. We do not give Kuraz a ritual he can write into your blood." His thumb brushed once against the curve behind her ear. The smallest touch. It sent a shiver down her spine. Saielit squeezed her eyes shut. The heat twisted, turned into a pulse of aching need that made her breath hitch. Varkhion's scent surged stronger, wrapping her in rain and thunder, pressing her call down. He did not crush it. He guided it, contained it. Saielit realized with a sharp clarity that he was doing what the living caller had done, but with choice, not rune programming. A barrier that did not punish her for existing. She leaned into him, trembling, and whispered, "Stay. I am here," Varkhion said. The corridor remained quiet. No more guards rushed in. Someone was watching. Someone was waiting for her to fail. Minutes dragged. The heat peaked and held, the silver ring keeping it from exploding. Sailit's body burned. She bit her lip to keep from making sounds that would betray her weakness. Tears ran anyway, not from shame, but from the strain of refusing the script written into her nerves. Varkhion's arms stayed around her, firm enough to hold her upright, gentle enough not to trap. His breathing remained slow, a rhythm she could cling to like a rope over water. When the heat finally began to ease, it did not vanish. It withdrew like a tide, reluctant, promising to return. Saielit sagged against him. Mavrina exhaled shakily. "You did not break." Saielit opened her eyes. The sight elixir had faded fully now, but something remained on her skin, a faint prickling warmth at the side of her neck, just below her ear. She lifted her fingers and touched the spot. A faint pattern, barely visible, like a shadow under the skin, not a full mark, a ghost of one. Sailit's breath caught. Varkhion. Varkhion's gaze snapped to the spot. His whole body went rigid. He released her at once, stepping back as if she had burned him. "No," he said, voice sharp. Saielit swayed, suddenly cold without his arms. "What is it?" Varkhion stared at the shadow mark like it was a blade aimed at her throat. "That is a near tether, a pre-mark." Sailit's pulse raced. "I did not ask for it." "I know," he said, then dragged a hand through his hair, breathing hard as if he had run miles. "The room did it. The ring recognized us. Your body reached for an anchor that felt safe." Sailit's voice trembled. "You are safe." Varkhion's eyes flashed with pain. "That is the problem." Mavrina's face tightened. "Explain now." Varkhion's jaw flexed. "If she marks me, the regent will have a root into her blood through mine. The leash is not only on her. It is woven into the bonds he can exploit. If my scent becomes her lock, he will treat me as the keyhole." Sailit's stomach dropped. "You said your chains were broken." "They are," Varkhion said, voice bitter. "But the palace still remembers my name. The runes still know my blood. Kuraz knows it too." Mavrina's eyes narrowed. "So you really did die once." Varkhion went still. Sailit's breath caught. "You did." Silence pressed hard. Varkhion looked away as if the truth was a light he could not stare into. Mavrina's voice softened, but only slightly. "Then we cannot let her mark you inside these walls, not under his anchor." Saielit stared at the shadow mark. It faded slowly, like a bruise being swallowed by skin. "I do not want a bond that is a leash," she whispered. "I want something that belongs to me." Varkhion's gaze returned, storm heavy. "Then we get you out." Mavrina's shoulders sagged with relief, then tensed again. "Out is not enough. Kuraz will pull the anchor line even if you run. He can trigger you again. He can use you as bait for every alpha in the kingdom." Sailit's hands curled. "Then we cut it." Varkhion's expression hardened. Not tonight, not without a plan. The palace is awake now. Mavrina stepped toward the hidden panel, already thinking. I will move you back to your room before they panic and flood this wing with wards. Act like you fainted and I carried you. I have done it before. You, she pointed at Saielit, you keep your scent close, no flare, no call. Saielit nodded shakily. Varkhion moved to the door and listened. The corridor beyond was quiet, too quiet. He opened the door just enough to see. Then he gestured. Now, they moved fast. Mavrina took Sailit's arm and guided her through servant passages, through narrow stairs that smelled of soap and herbs. Saielit kept breathing, holding her scent close like a secret. Behind them, Varkhion walked like a shadow with teeth, silent, vigilant. When they reached Sailit's room, Mavrina pressed her inside and shut the door. Saielit turned, expecting Varkhion to follow. He did not. He stayed in the corridor, looking at her through the narrowing gap. Sailit's chest tightened. Stay. Varkhion's mouth tightened, and for a heartbeat she thought he might. Then he shook his head once. If I stay, you will reach for me again, he said softly. And I do not trust myself to refuse you when you look like that. The honesty made her cheeks burn. He added, quieter. And if you tether to me, Kuraz will smile. The door closed. Saielit pressed her forehead to the wood, shaking. Morning arrived like a knife sliding under the door. Mavrina came with food and news, her face pale. He announced it, she whispered. In the council hall. He says in 3 days there will be a binding ritual, official, for peace. Sailit's stomach turned. Binding. They will call it a wedding, Mavrina said. They will call you blessed. They will put you on a dais and carve a vow into your scent. It is not marriage, it is execution of your will. Saielit gripped the edge of the table. Who? Mavrina's eyes flicked toward the corridor. He has not named the alpha. He will pretend to choose based on compatibility. He will invite noble packs to watch. He wants the kingdom to see the leash and accept it as law. Sailit's throat burned. 3 days. Mavrina leaned closer. There is more. You asked if there were others like you. Sailit's breath caught. Mavrina's voice shook just slightly. There were series girls, different calls, different seals. They did not survive the trials. Some broke, some went feral. Some were drained until they were empty. Sailit's vision blurred. How many? Mavrina swallowed. Enough that the laboratory smells like regret even after they scrub the floors. Sailit's hands shook. Are there any alive? Mavrina hesitated. A few. Not many. And they are not kept in rooms like yours. They are kept in cages that are part of the walls. Rage rose in Saielit, hot and clear, sharper than heat. We leave today. Mavrina's eyes widened. Today. Saielit nodded, voice steady. I will not wait for a ritual that turns my body into his sermon. Mavrina's gaze darted to the door. Varkhion will say no. Then he can stay and die here, Saielit said, and the words shocked even her. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the phantom pull of the anchor line. Or he can help me cut the leash by breaking the place that holds it. Mavrina stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. I will get you into the lower tunnels at shift change. There is a drain route under the west wing. It smells like rot. Try not to gag. The guards will notice. Saielit almost laughed, a harsh sound. I have smelled cages. Rot does not scare me. Mavrina's mouth twisted, half grim, half proud. It should. That evening, Varkhion came. He did not knock. He opened the door with a key that did not exist yesterday, stepped inside, and shut it behind him quietly. Saielit stood, spine rigid. He announced a ritual. Varkhion's eyes darkened. Yes, 3 days, she said. Varkhion nodded. Sailit's voice sharpened. We are leaving tonight. Varkhion's jaw clenched. No, the refusal hit her like a slap. She stepped closer. You told me to play the role to survive. That role ends with me on a dais. Varkhion's scent tightened, storm turning cold. If you run blindly, you will be caught. If you are caught, Kuraz will not wait 3 days. He will bind you in a cellar with no witnesses and call it mercy. Sailit's hands curled. Then we do not run blindly. Mavrina stepped out from the corner where she had been silent, as if she had always been there. I have a map. Varkhion's gaze snapped to her, sharp. You are risking your throat, Beta. Mavrina's eyes held his. I have been risking it every day I bring food to girls who will not see daylight. I am done being careful. Saielit watched Varkhion's face. She saw the war behind his control. He exhaled slowly. I cannot take you out without bloodshed. Saielit stepped closer until his scent filled her lungs. Then it will be bloodshed, she said quietly. Better theirs than mine. Varkhion's gaze dropped to the shadow mark on her neck that was now almost invisible. He looked away as if it hurt. Then he nodded once. Fine, we do it your way. But you do exactly what I say when we are in the tunnels. Sailit's pulse hammered. Deal. Mavrina moved immediately, pulling a bundle from beneath the bed. Dark servant clothes, a hood, a small pouch that smelled of bitter ash. Powder of silence, she said, handing it to Saielit. It will dull your scent for a short time, not hide it, just blur it. Use it when we pass guard points. Saielit tucked it into her pocket with shaking fingers. Varkhion checked the corridor, then led them out. They moved through servant routes, down stairs that spiraled into damp stone. The air grew colder, thicker. The palace above became a distant pressure. At the bottom, Mavrina stopped at a wall and pressed her palm to a rune that looked like a cracked droplet. The wall sighed and slid open. A tunnel yawned beyond, old brick lined with moss, water trickling somewhere unseen. The smell hit Saielit like a fist. Rot, iron, wet fur, old fear. She swallowed hard. Varkhion stepped in first, scent controlled, eyes alert. His presence made the tunnel feel less like a throat and more like a path. Mavrina followed, then Saielit. The wall slid shut behind them with a soft click that sounded final. They moved fast. The tunnel branched. Some passages were blocked by collapsed stone. Others were marked with faint runes, old wards that hummed as they passed. Sailit's breathing stayed steady, but her heart raced. She could feel the anchor line in her chest like a pressure that had turned its attention toward her, sensing movement. Do you feel it? She whispered. Varkhion nodded once. He will notice soon. They reached an iron grate, beyond it a corridor of cells. Sailit's stomach clenched. The smell here was different, not rot, despair. She stepped closer, peering through the bars. A figure lay on straw, unmoving, half-shifted. A man with antlers that had grown wrong, tangled into his hair, his face stuck between human and deer. His eyes stared at nothing. Another cell held a woman with scales along her jaw, the pattern beautiful and tragic, her hands curled like claws that had forgotten how to open. Sailit's throat tightened. They did this. Mavrina's voice was flat. They call it stabilization. They call it correction. They call it necessary. Sailit's hands shook. How can they do this and still laugh at balls? Because the people at balls do not come down here, Varkhion said, voice low, and because fear makes lies feel holy. A soft sound came from a darker cell. Saielit moved toward it. A child sat there, small, knees pulled to her chest. Her hair was tangled, her eyes were too big. A faint animal ear showed through her hair, stuck halfway, trembling. The girl looked up at Saielit and whispered, "The moon, it is cracking." Sailit's breath caught. She knows. The girl's gaze fixed on Sailit's maskless face, on the place under her skin where the cracked crescent brand lived. The child's voice was barely audible. Lunar. Varkhion's head snapped up, listening. Sailit's chest tightened. We cannot leave them. Mavrina's face twisted with pain. If we free them, the alarm will ring. The runes are tied to the locks. Sailit's gaze slid across the corridor. Cages built into walls, some empty, some full, some too quiet. She thought of series of girls who did not survive. She thought of being called defective so no one would feel guilty. She looked at Varkhion. If I am a weapon, then let me be used for this. Varkhion's expression hardened. You are not a weapon. Sailit's voice shook with rage. Then what am I, a bride? Mavrina pulled a ring of keys from her belt, hands trembling. I can open some manually, she whispered. Not all. The rune locks will scream. Saielit stepped to the first lock and gripped the iron. Do it. Varkhion's eyes flashed, then softened just a fraction. You are impossible. He moved to cover the corridor entrance, body angled like a shield. Mavrina slid a key in. The lock clicked. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the rune etched into the lock flared red. A siren wailed through the stones. Saielit flinched. The sound was not only noise. It was magic, a vibration that tugged at her chest, yanking the anchor line tight. Her heat twitched in response, sparked by stress. Mavrina swore, too late. The corridor erupted in distant footsteps, boots on stone, shouts echoing down the tunnel. Varkhion's sense surged, storm rising. Get them out, he said. Mavrina yanked the door open. The antlered man did not move. The scaled woman blinked slowly, dazed. Saielit rushed to the child's cell. Mavrina shoved another key in, hands shaking. The lock flared red again. The door opened. Saielit crouched. Come, she whispered. The girl stared at Sailit's eyes, then reached out and touched her sleeve with trembling fingers. Warm, real. She stood unsteady and stepped out. The footsteps grew louder. Varkhion's head turned toward the darkness, ears almost pricking with the wolf inside him. They are coming fast. A voice drifted down the tunnel, amused and calm. Thank you, Saielit Runveen. You gathered them for me. Sailit's blood went cold. Arendor Seventer stepped into the corridor entrance, flanked by guards with rune gauntlets. He wore no mask here. His smile was bright as a blade. Mavrina hissed under her breath. Varkhion's body went still, like a predator meeting another predator. Arendor's gaze slid over the open cells, the half-shifted prisoners, the child clinging to Sailit's sleeve. Such compassion, he murmured. It makes you predictable. Sailit's voice shook. You are Kuraz's hunter. Arendor placed a hand over his heart as if wounded. I prefer the word caretaker. I retrieve what strays. Varkhion's voice was low. Move aside. Arendor's smile widened. Or what? You will growl at me, you will bite. And then the regent will pull your leash and you will kneel like you did the first time. Varkhion's scent sharpened violently. His torn chains. Saielit remembered the sight, the jagged ends. Varkhion did not kneel. He took one slow step forward. Arendor's eyes glittered. He really did break it, Saielit, he said softly, as if speaking to her was the real fight. He broke the chain once and Kuraz never forgave him. Do you want to know how? Sailit's throat tightened. Shut up. Arendor chuckled. You will learn. The palace teaches. A guard lunged toward Saielit, eyes fixed on her throat, drawn by the residue of her scent. Varkhion moved. He slammed into the guard with a force that shook the corridor. The guard hit the wall and slid down, dazed. Another guard rushed. Varkhion's control snapped a fraction. His hands became claws. His shoulders broadened. Fur erupted along his forearms, dark and shot through with lightning patterns that flashed with every movement. His eyes brightened, stormlight turning predatory. Sailit's breath caught, half shifted. The wolf inside him was not a metaphor. It was a living thunderhead under skin. Arendor sighed as if disappointed, always dramatic. He lifted his own hands and shadow poured off him like ink. Feathers erupted along his arms. His posture shifted, spine lengthening, head tilting with avian precision. His eyes went black, glossy. Then his mouth changed. A beak of light, sharp and wrong, formed where lips had been, gleaming like a blade made of moon metal. It caught the tunnel light and threw it back. Saielit froze. A raven, but not natural. Something engineered. Something blessed by the same laboratory. Arendor spread his arms slightly, feathers rustling. You see, he said, voice still smooth, still human. The regent does not only breed omegas, he breeds monsters. Varkhion growled, low and vibrating, and launched. Claws met feathers. The corridor became chaos. Arendor moved like shadow, slipping aside, striking with a wing that hit like a whip. Varkhion snapped at him, lightning patterns flaring, his claws scraping stone when he missed. Guards surged around them. Mavrina shoved Saielit backward. Powder, now. Saielit fumbled the pouch, fingers slick with sweat. She threw the powder into the air. It burst into a dull gray cloud that clung to her skin, to the prisoners, to Mavrina. Her scent dulled, blurred, but it did not vanish. It became a distant song instead of a scream. The child clung to Sailit's sleeve, eyes wide. Saielit pulled her close with one arm and grabbed Mavrina's hand with the other. Move. They ran down the tunnel, dragging the scaled woman, urging the antlered man who finally staggered up, dazed, confused. Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed, claws, shouts, the snap of wings. Sailit's heart hammered. Varkhion. Mavrina's voice was harsh. He will follow, if he can. They hit a fork. Mavrina chose left, following the map, boots splashing through shallow water. The siren still wailed, but now it sounded far, muffled by distance and stone. Sailit's chest tightened. The anchor line tugged, sensing her movement like a hand on a leash. Her heat flickered, stirred by fear. No, she whispered, not now. The tunnel narrowed. Old runes on the walls began to glow faintly, awakened by the alarm. A door appeared ahead, thick iron with a rune circle in the center. Mavrina swore. That was not on the map. Sailit's breath hitched. The palace is changing. Footsteps behind them. Arendor's voice, amused, carrying through stone. Do not run too far. Your leash reaches farther than you think. Sailit's body trembled, but something else rose in her, a cold, strange steadiness that felt like the cracked moon in her dream opening its eye. She stepped toward the door. Mavrina grabbed her arm. We do not have time. Saielit stared at the rune circle. It hummed like a heartbeat. She did not know why, but the pattern felt familiar. The crack in the moon, the brand on her back, the whisper from the walls calling her lunar knot. Her scent shifted, subtle, focusing. Saielit inhaled and spoke one word, not loud, not dramatic, more like a command given to her own blood. Close. The rune circle flared. The iron door slammed shut behind them with a boom that shook dust from the ceiling. Mavrina stumbled. What did you do? Sailit's eyes widened, her own voice stuck in her throat. I told it. The prisoners stared at her, frightened and hopeful, as if they were seeing a new kind of alpha. Behind the closed door, fists pounded. A snarl of rage that sounded like Arendor. Saielit sent pulsed again, and this time the pulse felt like an order. Mavrina whispered, horrified and thrilled. Lunar Mother. Saielit shook her head, breath shaking. No, I am an Omega. Mavrina's eyes were fierce. Legends do not care what you want to be. Legends care what listens when you speak. The pounding behind them grew louder. The rune circle on the door began to glow hotter, straining. Varkhion's scent hit Saielit before she saw him, storm and blood and wolf. He rounded the corner, half-shifted, fur matted in places, lightning patterns flashing along his shoulders. His eyes locked on Saielit, and the sight of her standing, commanding runes, made his expression shift into something like awe and fear. Move, he growled. He will break it. They ran. The tunnel opened into an older chamber, circular, with a stone well at its center, covered by a warped wooden lid. Moss climbed the walls like veins. The air smelled of old rain. Mavrina's breath hitched. The well. This is the one, the old exit. Varkhion crossed the room in 2 strides and ripped the lid away with a snarl. The sound echoed. A shaft dropped into darkness. Rope, Mavrina said, already pulling one from a hook that looked ancient. She threw it down, listened for it to catch. Voices echoed behind them now. The door rune had failed. Footsteps, many. Arendor's laugh drifted closer. That was clever, Saielit. I enjoyed that. But clever is not enough. Saielit grabbed the rope, hands shaking. The child clung to her waist, trembling. The moon. Saielit swallowed hard. You go first, she told the child. The girl stared, then nodded, small hands gripping the rope. Varkhion lifted her easily and lowered her into the shaft, guiding her feet to the stones. Scaled woman next, Mavrina barked. They moved fast, desperate. One by one, the prisoners went down, clinging, slipping, sobbing. The siren wailed, closer now, vibrating through Sailit's bones. Mavrina grabbed Sailit's shoulders. Go. Sailit's gaze snapped to Varkhion. He stood between them and the tunnel entrance, claws flexing, ready to die. Sailit's chest tightened. Come, Varkhion's eyes flashed. After you. No, Saielit said, voice fierce. I will not leave you behind in a hole under their palace. For a heartbeat, Varkhion's control wavered. Something tender moved across his face, almost human. Then the corridor erupted with guards. Arendor stepped into view behind them, feathers slick, beak of light gleaming, a small cut along his cheek that did not bleed like normal blood. He tilted his head, amused. There you are, he said, surrounded by your rescue. How noble, how doomed. Varkhion snarled and lunged. Arendor snapped his wings outward. Runes on the guards flared and a net of light shot toward Varkhion. Varkhion tore through it, lightning patterns flaring, but the net wrapped his torso, slowing him. He stumbled, fighting. Sailit's blood went cold. Her chest tightened as the anchor line tugged hard, trying to force her scent into the corridor, trying to make her call so the guards would frenzy. Saielit clenched her jaw. No. She stepped forward, away from the well, away from escape, toward Arendor. Mavrina grabbed her arm. Saielit. Varkhion's head snapped toward her. Do not. Sailit's voice was low, shaking, but steady. You said I am a key. Then watch what I open. Arendor's eyes glittered. Yes. That is it. Come to me. Saielit felt the old script trying to rise in her, the urge to submit for safety. She strangled it in her breath. In, hold, out. Then she let her scent pulse once, not as a plea, not as heat, but as command. It rolled through the chamber like a wave. Guards froze, not all, some fought it. But enough hesitated that the charge faltered. Heads turned toward Saielit, eyes wide, beasts lifting their noses as if hearing a whistle only they could hear. Arendor's smile faltered for the first time. Interesting. Varkhion tore at the net again, snarling, lightning flaring. Saielit looked at the guards and spoke, voice shaking but clear. Down. A few actually dropped to one knee, confused, humiliated, unable to resist the instinct that treated her like dominance. Mavrina whispered, raw with belief. Lunar Mother. Sailit's heart hammered. She hated the title. She hated what it implied. Arendor's wings twitched, feathers bristling. Enough games. He raised a hand. The runes on the floor flared. The anchor line yanked Sailit's chest, trying to drag her heat up, trying to make her collapse. Saielit gasped, knees bending. Varkhion roared, a sound that shook the chamber, and the net around him snapped with a crack of lightning. He surged forward, slamming into a guard, throwing him aside like a doll. Saielit forced herself upright, tears burning. She stared at Arendor. You are not hunting me, she whispered. You are hunting what listens when I speak. Arendor's beak of light glinted. Same thing. He lunged. Varkhion met him midair, claws and feathers colliding. They hit the stone hard, rolling, fighting, a storm wolf and a shadow raven. Mavrina shoved Saielit toward the well. Now. Saielit grabbed the rope and climbed down, hands burning as she slid. Above, the chamber shook with impact, snarls, the crackle of runes. As she descended, Sailit's scent dulled in the shaft, swallowed by damp stone. The anchor line tugged, but weaker. When her feet hit the bottom, cold water splashed her ankles. A tunnel stretched out narrow, leading toward a faint draft that smelled like wet leaves. She turned, looking up. Varkhion dropped into the shaft after her, landing hard, half-shifted still, breath ragged. Mavrina followed, sliding fast. The last thing Saielit saw above was Arendor's face leaning over the well, eyes black, smile sharp. Run, he called down, voice echoing. I love a chase. Mavrina grabbed Sailit's wrist and pulled her through the lower tunnel. They ran bent over, water splashing, lungs burning. The rescued prisoners stumbled after, guided by Mavrina's harsh whispers and Sailit's steady hand. The tunnel rose. The air changed, colder, fresher. Then came a final stone ladder slick with moss. Varkhion went up first, scent scanning, then reached down to pull Saielit up. His hand around her forearm was hot, firm. Saielit climbed, heart-hammering, and broke into open air. Night, a forest, trees tall and black, branches like ribs against a clouded sky. Mist curled low to the ground. The scent of pine and damp earth hit her like a blessing. For one breath, Saielit felt free. Then the forest answered with silence that was not peace. It was the silence of a predator holding still. Varkhion's head lifted, nostrils flaring. Mavrana's voice was tight, Shardmer. Sailit's breath came out in a shaky laugh. We did it. Varkhion did not smile. His eyes scanned the trees, ears almost pricking. The child clung to Sailit's side, whispering, "Not safe." Sailit's chest tightened. "What is it?" Mavrana pointed to a tree trunk nearby. Marks were carved into it, not random scratches. Symbols. A serpent coiled around a crescent. Sailit's stomach dropped. Serpent shifters. Varkhion's scent went sharp. A rival pack. A soft hiss of movement came from the mist. Figures stepped out from between trees, silent and circling. Men and women in dark leathers, eyes gleaming, some with scales along their necks, some with slit pupils that caught the moonlight. At their center stood a tall alpha with hair braided tight and a smile that did not belong to kindness. His scent was cool, coiling, a familiar poisonous calm. He looked at Saielit as if she were a prize he had been promised. "Well," he said softly, "the palace loses its jewel and the forest finds it." Varkhion stepped forward, half-shifted, claws visible. "Move away." The serpent alpha tilted his head. "Give us the Omega and we leave you your lives." Sailit's stomach clenched. "They want me." Mavrana's knife shook in her hand. Varkhion's voice was a growl, "Over my dead body." The serpent alpha's smile widened. "That can be arranged." More figures moved in the mist. Too many, too quiet. Varkhion's shoulders tensed, ready to die. Saielit looked at him, at the lightning patterns on his fur, at the exhaustion in his eyes, at the way he still placed himself between teeth and her throat even when there was no collar on her neck. She stepped around him. Varkhion snapped, "Saielit." "No." Saielit kept walking until she stood in front of him, facing the serpent pack. Her heart hammered so hard it hurt. She felt the anchor line tug from far away, a faint pull like a finger on a string. But here, in the forest, the pull was weaker. The palace stones were gone. The runes were distant. The cracked moon inside her memory seemed to breathe. The serpent alpha's gaze slid down her body, assessing. His nostrils flared, tasting the last of her blurred scent. He smiled, confident. Saielit felt something click in her blood. Not heat, something colder, older. A hinge opening in a door she did not know she had. She inhaled the forest. Wet leaves, fox musk, deer, wolf, bird, earth. Then she whispered one word into the mist. "Come," the world answered. A rustle spread through the undergrowth like a wave. Eyes appeared in the dark. Not human, animal. Wolves, not shifters, stepping out with hackles raised. A stag, massive, antlers like a crown, stamping once, breath steaming. Ravens in the trees, silent, watching. Even smaller beasts, foxes, badgers, creatures that should have fled, instead formed a living ring around Saielit, as if the forest itself had chosen her as its center. The serpent pack faltered. Their leader's smile cracked. "What are you?" Sailit's throat tightened. "I do not know," she whispered honestly. But the beasts did not need her to know. They only needed her to speak. Varkhion behind her went very still. His scent shifted, awe and fear braided together. Mavrana's voice shook, half laugh, half sob. "She calls." The serpent alpha took one slow step back. Another serpent shifter hissed. "This is wrong." The leader's eyes narrowed, calculating. He lifted his hands slightly, placating. "We meant no disrespect, Lunar One." Sailit's pulse hammered. "Lunar One." The title felt like a cage made of myth. She lifted her chin. "Leave," she said. The beasts held their ground, waiting. The serpent pack retreated, step by step into the mist, never turning their backs, fear and greed battling in their eyes. When they vanished, the forest did not relax. The animals remained, watching Saielit as if awaiting the next command. Sailit's knees went weak. She swallowed hard. "Thank you," she whispered, unsure who she was speaking to. The beasts began to melt back into the trees, one by one, as if the forest had only briefly stepped closer to listen. Mist drifted in. And from that mist, a figure emerged. A cloak of foxtails swayed around their shoulders, rust red and silver, moving like living flame in the dark. Their face was shadowed by a hood, but their eyes were sharp, amused, old. They stopped a few paces away and looked Saielit up and down as if reading her scent without needing to breathe. "You have one chance," the stranger said, voice calm as a blade. "Either you break the chain now, or it breaks you." "One chance," the fox-cloaked stranger said again, letting the words hang in the mist until they felt like a verdict. "Either you break the chain now, or it breaks you." Saielit stood very still. The forest had gone quiet again, as if it had only briefly leaned in to listen to her and now withdrew to watch. Varkhion stayed half-shifted behind her, breath heavy, claws flexing at his sides. Mavrina's knife was still out, small and stubborn in her hand. Rescued shifters clustered close, frightened, wounded, half-present. The child pressed her forehead to Sailit's hip like she could hide inside warmth. Saielit lifted her chin. "Who are you?" The stranger pushed the hood back. Fox ears, sharp and elegant, rose through hair the color of ash. Eyes the shade of amber and old smoke watched Saielit with the calm attention of someone who had seen cages and still dared to laugh. "Ulavis Cran," they said, voice flat. "And you are louder than you think." Varkhion's growl deepened. "You were following?" Ulavis shrugged. "I heard the sirens. I smelled storm wolf blood, and then the forest started obeying an Omega. Curiosity is not a crime." Sailit's throat tightened at the word Omega. It felt too small for what had happened. It felt too small for the way the animals had gathered when she whispered. Mavrina stepped forward tense. "Say what you came to say and leave us with our breathing." Ulavis's gaze slid to Mavrina, then to Sailit's neck, to the faint ghost of the near tether under her skin. Their expression sharpened as if they had found a crack in a mask. "He is close to pulling you again," Ulavis said. Sailit's stomach dropped. "How do you know?" "Because I can taste his magic in the air when you panic," Ulavis replied. "Not your scent." "His." Varkhion's fur bristled along his forearms. "Kuraz is not here." Ulavis smiled without humor. "He does not have to be." "That is the horror of anchors." Sailit's heart thudded. "Anchors." Ulavis stepped closer, slow, hands visible as if approaching a frightened animal. "You think the collar was the leash. You think the regent lost his grip when it fell off your neck. That is what he wants you to think." Saielit swallowed hard. Then what was it? Ulavis's eyes held hers. The collar was the anchor's handshake, a polite introduction, a way to make your body accept the line. Saielit felt suddenly sick, the pull in her chest, the pressure that could turn into heat with one invisible tug. Ulavis continued, voice calm like someone explaining weather. "He tied a rune to his own heart and then tied you to it. Not by chain, by instinct, by the oldest language in flesh. That is why he can yank your heat like a cord. That is why he can make you feel safe only in the arms he chooses for you. That is why your call tries to find a lock and fit itself." Sailit's lips parted, but no sound came out. Varkhion went very still. The storm in him tightened. "Say it plainly, Fox." Ulavis's gaze flicked to him, sharp, plainly. "If the anchor remains intact, she will never truly be free. She can run to the ends of Shardmer and he will still be able to pull her to her knees when the line tightens." Mavrina's face went pale. "Then the ritual in 3 days is not the real end." Ulavis nodded once. "The ritual is theater. He wants witnesses. He wants everyone to see the leash and call it peace. But the true collar sits in his chest." Sailit's hands shook. "How do we break it?" Ulavis's eyes narrowed, measuring. "You do not break his heart with a knife. You break the rune that lives there, the controlling rune. The one that all the smaller leashes answer to." Varkhion's voice went low. the laboratory. Ulivis's smile turned thin. Yes, the heart of the Under Palace, the place the air tastes like metal and prayers. Saielit stared at the trees. She had just escaped. She could have kept running until her legs gave out. She could have hidden in a hollow and begged the forest to swallow her. And still the line would have followed. She turned back. The rescued prisoners watched her with tired hope. The child's fingers clenched in Sailit's clothes, tiny knuckles white. Sailit's voice was hoarse. If we go back, we die. Ulivis's expression softened by a fraction. If you do not, you die slowly. In a bed you did not choose. With a mark you did not consent to. With your body turned into a sermon. Varkhion took one step closer to Saielit, careful, as if his own nearness was a temptation he did not want to force on her. His voice was rough. We can hide you. We can run. We can find a witch to sever the line. Ulivis snorted softly. Witchwork cannot undo an anchor woven into blood unless the anchor is cracked. You can muffle it. You can delay it. But he will keep tugging until you break or you obey. Or until you kill yourself to escape the feeling. Saielit closed her eyes. The forced heat in the ballroom, the blood petals, the way her body had betrayed her with need that felt like pain. The way guards had almost dropped to their knees when her scent pulsed. The way Arendor had smiled like it was all a game with her throat as the prize. She opened her eyes and looked at Varkhion. If we go back, can you get us to the anchor? Varkhion's jaw tightened. Yes. Mavrina's breath hitched. You know the path. Varkhion's gaze was heavy, haunted. I know too much. Saielit stepped closer until she was inside the edge of his scent, storm rain and something wounded. Her voice dropped. You told me you are my barrier. Varkhion's throat moved when he swallowed. I am. Then be it, Saielit whispered. But barriers stand in doorways. They do not run away from them. For a moment, Varkhion's control wavered. His eyes flashed, almost bright with hunger and fear together, and Saielit felt a pull in herself toward him, that dangerous longing to anchor to the only place that felt steady. He forced it down, voice tight. Do not make me your home in a world that will burn you for it. Sailit's lips trembled. I am not asking for a mark. I am asking for a way to live. Varkhion's hand lifted, stopped, then finally touched her hair with the gentlest brush. A silent promise. Then he let his hand fall, as if the touch itself could become a chain if he held it too long. Ulivis watched this with a look that was too knowing. You are already close to tethering, they murmured, to no one in particular. The palace will try to use it. Mavrina's voice snapped. Enough. What do we need? Ulivis pulled a small pouch from inside the fox-tail cloak and tossed it to Saielit. Powder of silent scent. Not a veil, just a blur. It will give you time to decide without panic. Not long. Saielit caught it with shaking fingers. She already had Mavrina's powder, but this smelled different, colder, with an undernote like ash on snow. Ulivis pointed to the rescued prisoners. You cannot drag a wounded herd into the Under Palace and expect stealth. The word herd made Saielit flinch. Ulivis softened their tone. There is a den not far, an old hunter lodge that my people use. We can hide them. Treat them. Then the ones who can move will follow you in later if needed. Mavrina's eyes narrowed. Your people. Ulivis's smile returned, small and sharp. Foxes are not a pack like wolves. We are a promise. We appear when someone has nowhere left to be. Varkhion's growl was quieter now, less hostile, still wary. This could be a trap. Ulivis's gaze held his without blinking. Everything is a trap tonight. At least mine is honest. Saielit exhaled. Show us. They moved through the forest quickly, Ulivis leading with silent confidence. Mist curled between trunks, cold and damp. The rescued prisoners stumbled, shivering. Varkhion carried the scaled woman for stretches without complaint, his half-shifted strength making her weight nothing. Mavrina kept the antlered man moving, whispering harsh encouragement. The child stayed glued to Saielit, eyes darting to shadows. At the lodge, Ulivis pushed aside a curtain of vines that hid a low door. Inside, The air smelled of smoke and dried herbs. Lanterns glowed softly, already lit as if someone had been waiting. Saielit skin prickled. You expected us. Ulavis shrugged again. I expected something. The forest was restless. They guided the prisoners to blankets and a small fire pit. Water was set out, salves, bandages. Food that tasted like hard bread and salt, but made Sailit's throat loosen with relief when she swallowed. The child finally spoke more than whispers. My name is Lur, she said, voice small. Lur of no pack. Saielit knelt in front of her. Lur, how did you know about the moon? Lur's eyes were too old. It tells me, in dreams. It cracks and it sings. Ulavis crouched nearby, watching Lur like a puzzle. Lunar whisperer, they murmured, rare. Mavrina stiffened. The laboratory did not just keep her, they studied her. Lur nodded once, solemn. They wanted me to say the true names. I did not. So they hurt my throat. Sailit's chest tightened with rage so pure it felt like clarity. She cupped Lur's cheek gently. No one will hurt you again. Lur leaned into the touch with a fragile trust that nearly shattered Saielit. While Mavrina tended wounds, Varkhion stepped outside with Ulavis. Saielit followed without thinking, then stopped at the threshold, listening. The night was damp and heavy. Somewhere far, an owl called. Ulavis's voice drifted back. You know where the anchor is. Varkhion's reply was a low rumble. I know where the controlling rune will be displayed when he wants to feel powerful. He will dress it like an altar. Ulavis's tone was almost mocking. He loves theater. Varkhion's silence was sharp. Ulavis continued, softer. You were there when he built it, were you not? Sailit's breath caught. Varkhion's voice went cold. Do not, so it is true, Ulavis said. The storm wolf died once, and the regent stitched him back together with oath and rune. Saielit pressed her hand to the doorframe, knuckles white. Died. Varkhion's voice sounded like stone scraping. I did not ask to be resurrected. Ulavis's voice was calm. None of his tools do. That is why your chains are torn. You broke the leash by breaking yourself out of the story he wrote for you. You refused to kneel, so he killed you. Then he regretted wasting a weapon and dragged you back. Sailit's stomach turned. She pictured Varkhion on a cold slab under the palace, lightning patterned still, eyes empty, and hands pressing runes into his heart to make him stand again. She swallowed hard, feeling suddenly dizzy. That is why you are bound to the palace. That is why the runes recognize you. Varkhion turned his head, and Saielit caught a glimpse of his profile through the doorway. His expression was taut, pain and rage held behind iron control. Ulavis's voice softened again, almost kind. You cannot cut her chain alone. He will pull yours too. The anchor is not only tied to her. It is a web. Varkhion's reply was quiet, bitter. I know. Saielit stepped outside. Cold air hit her face. Both of them looked at her. Saielit forced her voice to stay steady. Tell me what you are not telling me. Varkhion's eyes darkened. Saielit, tell me, she repeated. If I am tied to him, I need to know every knot. Ulavis watched with interest, as if enjoying the sharpening of a blade. Varkhion's jaw clenched. He did not look away this time. Kuraz did not find you by chance, Varkhion said. He has been collecting bloodlines. Calls, seals, series. He built you, not your soul, but the way your scent behaves. He wanted a call that could command beasts and bend alphas. He wanted a queen without a crown. Saielit felt sick. And you, Varkhion's throat moved. He built me to be the barrier. The only alpha he could keep close enough to you without triggering a frenzy every time you breathed. A storm that could cover your wildfire. Mavrina's voice came from inside, sharp, a forced compatibility. Varkhion did not deny it. He continued, voice tight. He wanted you to reach for me because I feel safe. Because my scent can hold yours. Because then the bond would form in the most natural-looking way. And once it formed, he would have a direct route into your blood through mine. Sailit's chest ached. That is why you pulled away when the shadow mark appeared. Yes, Varkhion whispered. Saielit stared at him. The truth made her feel cold and furious and heartbreakingly tender all at once. He had been designed as a cage shaped like comfort. Ulavis watched her face and nodded once, approving. Now you understand why running is not enough. Saielit swallowed hard. I feel like I cannot trust my own wanting. Varkhion's gaze softened. Wanting is not a crime, but wanting while someone else holds the strings is a trap. Sailit's voice was a whisper. I wanted you before I knew any of this. Varkhion flinched as if the words were a wound. Do not say it like that. Saielit stepped closer, close enough to feel the edge of his storm scent. I am saying it because it is mine. Even if he tried to plant it, even if he tried to steer me, I still chose to step in front of that serpent pack. I still chose to come back for the prisoners. I still choose to stand here and look at you. Varkhion's breath hitched. His hand lifted and stopped midair again, trembling with restraint. Ulavis cleared their throat, dry. I am touched. Truly. But if you are going back into the Under Palace, you need more than feelings. Mavrina stepped out, wiping her hands on cloth. The rescued are stable for now. Not well, but breathing. Her gaze flicked to Saielit. Are we doing it? Saielit nodded once. Tonight. Mavrina's mouth tightened with fear, then steadied. Then we need a route in. Varkhion's eyes went distant, remembering stone and runes and sirens. The well we used is already compromised. Arendor will have men on it by dawn. We need another entrance. Ulavis's ears twitched. There is an older mouth. A sinkhole west of the palace wall, swallowed by brambles. It drops into forgotten corridors that connect to the Under Palace. Few know. Fewer survive because the wards down there bite anything that smells like fear. Saielit swallowed. Then we do not bring fear. Ulavis smiled. Exactly. They moved again, leaving the lodge behind with a fox guard promised by Ulavis. Saielit hated leaving the rescued, but she could not drag them into another siren. Lur tried to follow, clinging to Sailit's sleeve, eyes pleading. Saielit knelt, pressing her forehead gently to Lur's. Stay, I am coming back. Lur's whisper trembled. Do not let the moon eat you. Sailit's throat tightened. I will not. Ulavis led them to the sinkhole. It was a wound in the earth hidden under thorns. Cold air breathed out of it like the exhale of a buried beast. Mavrina muttered a prayer under her breath. Saielit pulled the new powder pouch from Ulavis and rubbed a pinch between her fingers, then pressed it at her pulse points. Neck. Wrists. Behind ears. The bitter cold scent sank into her skin. Her own scent dulled, blurred, not gone but softened like a distant song muffled by snow. Varkhion watched her hands. His voice was low. If you start to flare, tell me. Do not hide it from me. Sailit's lips pressed together. I do not want to be your weakness. Varkhion's gaze held hers, storm calm for a heartbeat. You are not my weakness. You are the reason I remember I am alive. The words made Sailit's breath catch. Heat stirred low in her belly, not forced, not commanded, just her body responding to the gentleness under his violence. She swallowed, grounding herself. In hold, out. Ulavis dropped into the sinkhole first, landing like a cat in darkness. Mavrina followed, then Saielit. Varkhion came last, silent. Down below, the air tasted like wet stone and old iron. The walls were slick. Old runes glimmered faintly like sleeping eyes. As they moved, Saielit felt the anchor line in her chest tug, faint but insistent, like someone far away had turned their head and sensed her name being spoken. Kuraz, she thought, and the thought itself felt like a hand on her throat. They reached a corridor where the stone changed. Newer, cleaner. The smell of suppressant herbs returned, bitter and familiar. Ulavis lifted a hand. Listen. Through the stone, distant voices carried. Purification, someone said. The regent ordered it. All lower wings sealed. All staff questioned. Arendor is hunting, another voice replied. He says the Omega is not escaping. He says she will come back. Sailit's stomach turned. Mavrina's eyes narrowed. He is right. Sailit's voice was a whisper. I am coming back, but not to kneel. They moved deeper, slipping behind pillars, passing servant doors that were now guarded. the palace felt different. Awake in a way it had not been before, like a hive after smoke. Ulavis guided them through a narrow passage that ended at a crack in a wall. A hidden viewing slit. Beyond it was a vast central hall beneath the palace. Saielit breath caught. Runes glowed along the floor in branching lines, like a nervous system made of light. Every line seemed to lead to a raised platform at the center, an altar. And on the altar, suspended above a bowl of dark stone, hung a crystal. It pulsed faintly, not with light, with rhythm. Saielit pressed her hand to her chest as if to calm her heart, then realized the horrible truth. The crystal was beating in time with her. "The anchor," she whispered, voice shaking. Ulavis's eyes gleamed in the low light. "Yes." Mavrena's face went pale. "It is beautiful." Saielit swallowed bile. "So is a knife before it cuts." Around the altar stood guards in rune gauntlets, priests or scientists in sigilled robes. Noble observers behind a lattice balcony, watching as if this were entertainment. And at the foot of the altar stood Kura's tar veil. He wore dark velvet, hands clasped behind his back, posture relaxed. A man in control of his own myth. His pale eyes scanned the hall, then lifted as if he could see through stone. Sailit's skin prickled. "He is looking for me," she whispered. Varkhion's scent tightened, storm turning sharp. "He can feel the line. Keep breathing, keep it close." Saielit forced air into her lungs. In, hold, out. The pull in her chest eased by a hair, not gone, but less. Kura smiled faintly, as if he had noticed her effort and found it charming. He spoke, his voice carrying through the hall like silk. "She will return, they always return." Sailit's nails dug into her palm. Ulavis's whisper was barely audible. "He is baiting your panic. Do not feed him." A door opened below. Arendor entered the hall, feathers hidden tonight under a noble coat, face clean, eyes bright. He bowed to Kuraz with the elegance of someone who enjoyed the taste of power. Kuraz said something too quiet to hear. Arendor's gaze lifted toward the balcony, then swept the hall, then paused for half a heartbeat exactly where Saielit was hidden. Sailit's blood went cold. His smile widened. "He knows," she mouthed. Varkhion's growl was soundless, contained in his chest. Ulavis cursed softly. "We have seconds now. Once he speaks, the hall will flood with guards." Mavrena's hands shook. "How do we even reach the altar?" Ulavis's eyes flicked to Saielit. "You do what you did in the tunnel. You make the stone listen. But this time, you do not close a door, you crack a heart." Saielit stared at the crystal. Her chest throbbed in time with it. Her body wanted to sink to its knees, to accept that she was tied to it, to stop resisting so the ache would stop. Then she remembered Lur's bruised throat, the antlered man's empty eyes, the sign above the cage. Omega, defective, do not scent. A lie written to make cruelty feel simple. Saielit exhaled. "I need to get closer." Varkhion's hand closed around her wrist, firm. "If we step into that hall, he can trigger you. He can flood you with heat until you cannot think." Saielit met his eyes. "Then do not let me forget who I am." Varkhion's jaw clenched. "That is a dangerous thing to ask an alpha." Sailit's voice was soft, fierce. "I am not asking the alpha. I am asking the man who sat on the floor and guarded a door like it was his only prayer." For a heartbeat, the storm in Varkhion steadied. He nodded once. Mavrina swallowed hard. "I will get us to the outer ring. There is a service stair on the left, but once we step out, we are visible." Ulavis's smile was thin, "Then be visible like a blade, not like prey." Sailit's heart hammered. She thought of her scent, of the way it could pulse like command. She thought of the cracked moon in her dream, the beast with a crown watching her as if it had been waiting. She did not want to be a legend. Legends were cages too. But if the world insisted on making her myth, she would use it to burn the bars. They left the slit and moved fast, through a narrow passage, down a stair that smelled of incense, past a door where chanting drifted, low and eager. They emerged behind a column at the edge of the central hall. The runes on the floor glowed brighter here, humming under Saielit feet like a living thing recognizing her. Her chest tightened. The anchor line tugged hard, excited, as if the crystal had sensed her proximity and leaned toward her. Kuraz turned his head slowly. His pale eyes locked onto Saielit instantly, as if he had never been searching at all, only waiting for the moment she finally stepped into the open. He smiled. "There you are, Saielit Runveen," he said gently, and the sound of her name in his mouth made her skin crawl. "You came back, so you are already mine." Sailit's breath caught. The hall went silent, every gaze turning toward her, hungry curiosity sharpening the air. Arendor's smile gleamed like a promise of teeth. Varkhion stepped half a pace in front of Saielit, storm scent flaring, shoulders tense, ready to die. Kuraz lifted one hand, palm up as if offering mercy. "Come to the altar. Do not make this ugly. You are tired. You want the leash to stop pulling. I can make it stop." Saielit felt the anchor line tighten in her chest, a cruel coaxing. "Give in and the pain will soften. Kneel and the world will stop spinning." Her heat stirred, not full, but threatened, awakened by the pull. Sailit's hands shook. In, hold, out. She held Varkhion's gaze for one heartbeat and saw the silent vow there. "I will not let you forget." Then she looked at Kuraz. "No," Saielit said, voice trembling but clear. Kuraz's smile did not fade. It only turned colder. "Then we do it the old way." The crystal above the altar pulsed brighter. Sailit's chest seized as the anchor line yanked hard, trying to drag her into forced heat, trying to turn her refusal into a sob. She gasped, knees bending. Varkhion's arm wrapped around her waist, holding her upright, storm sent crashing over her like shelter. Saielit clutched his sleeve for one heartbeat, then forced her fingers to release. "This is mine," she told herself. "My breath, my voice, my choice." And somewhere deep in her memory, the cracked moon sang a name she had never learned with her mind, only with blood. The crystal pulsed again, brighter, greedy, and the pull in Sailit's chest turned into a claw. Her knees bent. Air tore out of her lungs in a sound she hated. Not a sob, not a moan. Something between, the body trying to become obedient because obedience was easier than pain. Varkhion's arm locked around her waist, lifting her back upright. Storm scent slammed down over her like a roof in a burning house. It did not erase the pull. It gave her one breath of space inside it. Kuraz watched with mild satisfaction, like a man watching an experiment behave as predicted. "There, you feel it. That is peace, Saielit. You do not have to fight anymore." "Peace is not a leash," Saielit rasped. Kuraz stepped closer, hands still clasped behind his back, regent calm, regent immaculate. "Peace is a system. A herd does not question the fence. It simply lives within it." Rage surged, clean and sharp. The word herd scraped every scar inside her. She forced her lungs to obey. In, hold, out. The pull did not vanish, but the panic loosened enough for thought to return. Ulavis stood a few steps behind, eyes narrowed, fox ears angled forward. Their lips moved in a whisper meant only for Saielit. Now, not with fear, with choice. Arendor's gaze gleamed from the side of the altar, a smile like a knife's reflection. His posture was relaxed, but his scent coiled with anticipation. He wanted the moment she broke. He wanted to taste what fell out of her when her control cracked. Sailit's vision blurred at the edges. In the blur, she saw the cracked moon again, not in the sky, but behind her eyes. A fissure of silver light, a beast crowned in night, waiting at the edge of the crack like it had been waiting all her life. Lunar not, the walls had whispered. The title felt like a curse. Kuraz lifted one hand, palm facing Saielit as if blessing her. "Kneel." The rune lines on the floor flared, the crystal throbbed. The pull yanked hard enough that heat threatened to surge, not natural, not hers, but forced. A tide pushed into her veins. Sailit's throat tightened. Her body wanted to obey to make the pressure stop. Varkhion's voice came low at her ear, rough with restraint. Look at me. She did. His eyes were storm dark, fierce, not pleading, not commanding. Present. Human under wolf under lightning. You are here, he whispered, not there, not under him, here. Saielit swallowed and focused on the rhythm of his breathing. In, hold, out. For one heartbeat, the pull slackened just enough. Saielit stepped forward out of Varkhion's arm. The movement made Varkhion's control shiver, but he let her go. He stayed at her back, a barrier that did not block her choice. Kuraz's smile deepened. Yes, good. Come. Saielit walked toward the altar like she was walking into a storm on purpose. Every step made the anchor line in her chest tighten, trying to turn her muscles into worship. She reached the outer rune ring. The runes surged brighter under her feet, as if recognizing her blood. Kuraz's voice softened, almost tender. I did not want to hurt you, Saielit. I wanted to save the kingdom from itself. Alphas cannot be trusted with power. Omegas cannot be trusted with desire. So I built a structure that would make everyone behave. You built a cage, Saielit said. Kuraz tilted his head. I built peace. Ulavis's whisper slid into Sailit's awareness again. The true name is close. Let it come. Do not chase it. Saielit stared at the crystal above the bowl. It beat in time with her heart like a parasite pretending to be kin. She closed her eyes. In the dark behind her eyelids, the cracked moon sang without sound. Not a melody, a sequence, a shape made of syllables. The name of a rune, not written, but remembered by blood. Saielit opened her eyes and spoke. The word was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was simply correct, as if she had always known it and had only been pretending she did not. The air changed. The rune lines on the floor froze mid-flare. The crystal stuttered, as if its heartbeat had tripped. Kuraz's smile faltered for the first time, just a hairline crack in his composure. What did you say? He whispered. Saielit said it again, clearer, and with it she poured one thing into the sound. Refusal, not of heat, not of desire, refusal of being owned. The crystal answered with a sharp sound like ice splitting. A crack flashed across its surface, bright as lightning. For a heartbeat, the entire under palace held its breath. Then the crack widened. A shockwave rippled outward through the rune network like a nerve scream. Lights flared. Doors shuddered. Wards that had been silent for years screamed awake, then died. Somewhere far away, metal clattered as if 1,000 collars had hit the floor at once. Saielit felt it in her own body first. The pull in her chest snapped, not fully gone, but broken enough that it no longer owned her spine. She inhaled and realized the air tasted different, no longer like a hand around her throat. Guards staggered. Some grabbed their heads. Some dropped to their knees, not in submission to Saielit, but in sudden vertigo, as if a constant pressure had vanished and left them unbalanced. A man in a rune gauntlet tore it off, gasping, eyes wide with shock. What is happening? Kuraz stepped back slowly, eyes fixed on the crystal like a man watching his heart fall out of his chest. His voice sharpened. Stabilize it. Now. Scientists rushed toward the altar. Their hands glowed with sigils. They tried to press light back into the crack. Saielit spoke the rune name again. The crack spidered. The crystal brightened, then went dim as if something inside it had been snuffed. A sound rose from the corridors beyond, not sirens this time. Shouting, doors banging open, footsteps running the wrong way. Prisoners, someone cried. The cages opened. Mavrina's breath hitched behind Saielit. It worked. Ulavis's eyes gleamed with fierce satisfaction. The palace lost its throat. Now it can only choke on its own lies. Arendor moved. He did not rush Saielit. He moved toward the crystal, fast and elegant, like a raven diving for something shiny. Varkhion snarled and intercepted him. Arendor's smile flashed. Relax, Storm Wolf. I'm not trying to save him. Varkhion's claws flexed. Then what are you doing? Arendor's gaze flicked to Kuraz, and for the first time the charm on his face slipped, revealing something cold and raw beneath. I am trying to decide who deserves to own the pieces. Kuraz's voice turned sharp as glass. Arendor, stand down. Arendor laughed softly. You sound like you believe you still have a leash. His eyes shifted, black and glossy for a blink, the raven beneath the noble coat stretching awake. Sailit's blood chilled. Another monster, another tool, another chain. But then she saw it in the way Arendor held his shoulders too still. The way his smile trembled at the edges. Fear, not of Saielit, of Kuraz. You are bound too, Saielit said quietly, and the truth surprised even her. Arendor's gaze snapped to her, sharp, furious. Do not pretend you understand me. Saielit held his eyes. I understand cages. For a heartbeat, Arendor looked like he might strike her for the audacity of compassion. Then his expression twisted into something uglier. He turned on Kuraz instead. You promised me I would never kneel again, Arendor said, voice low. You promised me I would be the one holding the leash. Kuraz's face went pale, a crack in porcelain. I gave you purpose. You gave me a collar made of praise, Arendor hissed. The guards closest to Kuraz hesitated, uncertain. Their rune gauntlets flickered as if the magic inside them had lost its master. Ulavis whispered, amused and sharp. Watch. A predator with a broken chain always bites the hand that forged it. Kuraz lifted his hand, trying to call power. The rune network did not answer the way it had. His fingers trembled. Saielit realized the horrifying beauty of it. Without the anchor, Kuraz was not a god. He was only a man with a plan and too many sins. Kuraz's gaze locked on Saielit, hatred bleeding through his calm now. You do not know what you are doing. You will release beasts you cannot control. Sailit's voice was hoarse. Better beasts free than people chained. Kuraz took one step toward her. Varkhion moved instantly, placing himself between Kuraz and Saielit, storm scent rising like a wall. Kuraz looked up at Varkhion and smiled thinly, trying to weaponize familiarity. You were always mine first, Varkhion. I pulled you out of death. I can put you back. Varkhion's eyes flashed, lightning bright. Try. Kuraz's smile wavered. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Arendor struck. Not at Saielit, not at Varkhion. At the altar. His hand, half shifted, feathers and shadow flaring, slammed into the bowl beneath the crystal. The stone cracked. The remains of the crystal dropped, shattered, into the dark basin like teeth falling from a mouth. A pulse of dead magic rolled outward, and the rune lines on the floor went dull, fading like veins when the heart stops. The underpalace groaned. Wards that had been held in place by constant pressure began to fail. Some doors swung open. Some seals collapsed. Distant screams echoed as hidden chambers were exposed to air for the first time in years. Mavrina grabbed Sailit's sleeve. We have to go. This place is breaking. Sailit's chest felt light and hollow at the same time. The anchor pull was gone. Not all pain vanished. But the hand that had been forcing her body into obedience was no longer inside her ribs. Kuraz stared at the shattered altar as if he could not understand a world where his will did not become law. Then he turned, and his composure snapped fully. Kill her, he spat. Bring me her throat. Guards moved, not all of them. One of the closest, a captain with scarred knuckles, lifted his gauntlet as if to obey, then hesitated, eyes wide with dawning horror. He looked at Kuraz like he was seeing him clearly for the first time. We were not guarding peace, the captain whispered. We were guarding a slaughterhouse. Kuraz's face twisted. You are nothing without me. The captain's hand dropped. I am still something without you. Another guard stepped forward, then another. A ripple of mutiny moved through the hall like a tide turning. Kuraz backed up, suddenly calculating again. You will regret this. Ulavis's voice cut in, cold. No, Regent, you will. The captain and two others seized Kuraz's arms. Kuraz struggled, furious, but the strength that had once seemed unshakable was suddenly only flesh. The guards forced him down to his knees on the now dull rune lines. Kuraz's pale eyes locked on Saielit. You will beg for me again when your heat eats you alive. Saielit stepped forward, close enough to see the fine veins around his eyes, close enough to smell the expensive suppressants failing to hide the rot under his calm. "Maybe I will have heat," Saielit said quietly. "Maybe I will want. But it will be mine, not yours." Kuraz's lips curled. "You think you can live without a leash. You will tear packs apart with your call." Sailit's hands shook, but her voice steadied. "Then I will learn. I will not make my fear into someone else's cage." A tremor ran through the floor. Somewhere deep, a wall collapsed with a distant roar. Mavrena's voice shook. "The lower wings are opening. People are running." Saielit turned, scanning the hall. Survivors poured in through side passages. Half-shifted, wounded, blinking at light like newborns. Some fell to their knees, sobbing, not because they were forced, but because they were finally not forced. Sailit's throat tightened painfully. "This is what you did, Kuraz." Kuraz looked away, jaw clenched, refusing guilt like it was poison. Arendor stood near the broken altar, breathing hard, feathers receding back under his skin, the noble mask cracking. His gaze met Sailit's, and his smile returned in a smaller, more dangerous form. "You broke the heart of a kingdom tonight," he murmured. "They will write songs. They will also write warrants." Saielit held his gaze. "What will you do?" Arendor's eyes flicked to Kuraz, now restrained, humiliated. Then to Varkhion, who watched him like a storm deciding where to strike. Arendor's lips twitched. "I will do what I always do," he said softly. "I will survive." He turned to leave. Varkhion's growl rumbled. "If I ever smell you near her again." Arendor glanced back, eyes bright with a familiar cruel amusement that was now threaded with something else, something like respect. "You will, Storm Wolf," he said, "not because I want her, because people will. Power draws flies. And Saielit, you smell like the end of cages." Then he vanished into the chaos of corridors, a shadow slipping through cracks. Sailit's stomach churned. He is not finished. Ulavis stepped closer to Saielit, voice low. "He will become a problem later. Tonight he was useful." Mavrena's face tightened. "Useful monsters still bite." Ulavis's ears flicked. "Yes, that is why foxes do not pet them." Another tremor hit. The ceiling dusted fine grit. The under-palace was destabilizing. Varkhion grabbed Sailit's hand. "We have to get out. Now." Saielit squeezed his fingers, the touch grounding, warm. She nodded. They moved fast, guiding freed prisoners upward, shouting directions, breaking smaller rune seals where doors stuck. With the anchor dead, many wards had become confused, half alive, half dying. The stone breathed wrong, like a body with an uneven heart. Saielit felt her call rise once, a pulse that could have turned into command, but she held it close. She did not want to become a new kind of regent. When they reached a stairwell, a group of guards blocked the path. Their eyes were wild, their beasts half out, panic making them dangerous. One raised a rune gauntlet, trembling. "Stay back. The regent says she is a plague." The captain who had restrained Kuraz appeared behind them, breath ragged. "Drop it," he barked. "The regent is finished." The guards hesitated. Saielit stepped forward, hands open, voice shaking but steady. "I am not your enemy." One guard spat, shaking. "You made the walls scream." Saielit swallowed. The walls were screaming already. You just learned to hear it. Something in her scent shifted, not dominance, not seduction, but something like truth spoken with skin. The guards' shoulders loosened by fractions. They lowered their gauntlets. Mavrena exhaled shakily. She is doing it without forcing them. Ulavis's smile was faint. A queen without a leash. Saielit hated the word queen, but she understood the shape of it now. Not a throne, responsibility. They made it into the night above the palace, through a hidden service gate as alarms rang and noble courtyards filled with terrified shouting. The sky was clouded. The moon was a pale blur behind mist. For the first time since waking in the cage, Saielit breathed without the sensation of a hand tightening around her throat. Her scent rose into the cold air, soft and careful, and nothing yanked it like a rope. She staggered, dizzy with relief. It is gone. Varkhion stood close without touching. His control was still iron, but his eyes were bare. Gone, he echoed, voice rough. Mavrina's hands shook as she wiped grime off her face. We need to move the survivors before the nobility decides they want to put new collars on them. Ulavis nodded. My lodge can take some. There are other dens. Fox paths. We can hide them until daylight and then move them to the border villages. People will believe a caravan more easily than a miracle. Sailit's gaze lifted to the palace windows. Flames flickered in one underlevel vent as something inside burned. Not the whole palace, but the underpalace, the laboratory, the heart of it. Smoke rose thin and bitter. Varkhion's jaw tightened. The rune network is collapsing. If we do not seal it, it will poison the foundation. It will leak into the city. Mavrina's eyes widened. Can we seal it? Ulavis tilted their head. We can bury it. Stone on stone, salt and ash. No more experiments under rooms where children dance. Sailit's chest tightened. Do it? They worked through the night with any hands that would help. Guards who had turned. Servants who had been silent for years. Freed prisoners who could still lift stones. They piled salt and ash into vents and sealed doors with fresh mortar and old runes spoken by Ulavis in a tongue that made the hairs on Sailit's arms rise. They marked the sealed places with foxtail sigils, a promise that anyone who tried to reopen them would be seen. At dawn, Kura's tar veil was taken away under heavy guard, not as a regent, but as a criminal. Nobles shouted, demanded explanations, demanded new chains. But too many servants had seen the underpalace. Too many guards had felt the leash break inside their own minds. Truth spread faster than decree when fear was no longer the only language allowed. When the last survivor was escorted toward the forest road, Saielit found herself standing by a quiet wall outside the palace grounds. The sun was a thin line of pale gold, barely warm but real. Varkhion stood beside her, hands at his sides, not touching, giving her space as if space were a gift. Mavrina and Ulavis were a short distance away, arguing about routes, supplies, hiding places. Their voices faded into background hush. Saielit stared at her own hands. They were scraped, dirty, real. She touched her throat where the living collar had once been. Nothing, no pressure, no whisper. She exhaled a shaky laugh that turned into a sob before she could stop it. It is quiet. Varkhion's voice was low. I know. Saielit wiped her face with the back of her hand, embarrassed by the tears. I should feel triumphant. Varkhion's gaze stayed on the horizon. Triumph is for stories that end cleanly. We just stopped one cage. There will be others. Saielit nodded. Arendor is still out there. Varkhion's jaw tightened. Yes. Sailit's throat tightened too, but she forced herself to keep breathing. In, hold. Out. Then she looked up at Varkhion. And you, Varkhion's eyes flicked to her wary. Saielit stepped closer. You said you are not my mate. Varkhion's throat moved. I am not. Saielit swallowed. And you said wanting could become his trap. Yes, Varkhion said, voice rough. Sailit's lips trembled, but the anchor is broken. Varkhion went very still. Sailit's voice was quiet, fierce. So I will say this plainly. I want you. Not because he designed it. Not because my body is forced. Not because of a ritual or a leash. I want you because you stood between me and teeth when you could have run. Because you held me without claiming me. Because you let me step forward even when it terrified you. Varkhion's control shivered. His scent rose, storm rain with a thread of heat that made Sailit's skin prickle. Saielit added, softer. And I want the choice to still be mine tomorrow. Varkhion's eyes darkened with something painful and tender. It will be. Sailit's breath hitched. Then touch me. Varkhion lifted his hands slowly, as if asking permission with every inch of air, and cupped Sailit's cheek. His palm was warm, rough, real. He did not pull her. He simply held her there, letting her choose how close. Saielit leaned into his hand, trembling. The contact sent a shiver through her that was not a leash. It was a living thing, wanting without panic. Heat without command. Varkhion's thumb brushed the corner of her mouth, gentle, reverent. His voice was barely a whisper. "Tell me to stop, and I stop." Saielit throat tightened. "Do not stop." Varkhion leaned down and kissed her. It was not frantic. It was not hunger making noise. It was controlled fire, careful and deep, as if he was terrified of hurting her with the strength of what he felt. His scent wrapped around her, storm and clean fur, and Sailit's own scent rose to meet it, sweet and impossible, but it did not explode into a call that dragged others. It stayed between them like a secret. Sailit's hands slid up his chest, fingers curling into his coat. He made a low sound in his throat and pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against hers. "My beast wants to mark you," he confessed, voice rough. "It wants to claim you and build a wall around you." Saielit swallowed, pulse racing. "And you," Varkhion's breath shook. "I want you to be free even if freedom means you never choose me." The words landed in Sailit's chest like a vow. She closed her eyes and listened inward. No anchor line tugged. No forced heat rose. Only her own heartbeat and the warmth of his hands and a deep quiet where terror used to live. Saielit opened her eyes. "Then we do this slowly." Varkhion's brows drew together, slowly. "Yes," Saielit said, "we do not rush into a bond just to feel safe. We build safety that does not require a bond, and if we choose it later, it will be ours." Varkhion's eyes softened. "A bond as a shield, not a chain." Saielit nodded. "A shield that says no one gets to reach into someone's instincts again." Varkhion exhaled, a sound like relief and grief braided together. "I can live with that." Saielit smiled through the last of her tears. "Then live." Weeks passed like a bruise fading. Not gone, but no longer the whole skin. The survivors were housed in a guarded estate beyond the city, a place with windows and sunlight and no runes in the walls. Ulevis's Fox network moved people quietly, like smoke slipping under doors. Mavrina became impossible to ignore, not a servant anymore, but a leader with lists and plans, and a voice that did not apologize for taking space. Saielit visited the rescued often, sitting with them in silence when words were too sharp. The antlered man began to blink like a person again. The scaled woman started to laugh, startled by her own sound. Lur spoke in full sentences on some days and only whispers on others, but she slept without flinching at sirens. On the first night Saielit slept in a real bed with a window, she woke at midnight in panic out of habit. No collar tightened. No whisper said her name like an ownership. She lay there, heart racing, staring at the ceiling until her breath slowed. Then she felt it. Warmth beside the bed, not in it, beside it. She turned her head. Varkhion sat on the floor, back against the wall, the same way he had sat in that room under the palace, guarding a door like it was his prayer. Sailit's throat tightened. "You do not have to sleep there." Varkhion's voice was quiet. "I know." Saielit lifted the blanket and patted the edge of the mattress. "Then do not." Varkhion's eyes darkened, storm soft. He stood slowly, as if the movement itself was consent, and lay down beside her fully clothed, leaving space between them like a promise. Saielit rolled toward him, close enough to feel his heat without forcing it. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder. Varkhion's arm came around her carefully, asking with pressure rather than words. Saielit nodded into him. His hold tightened, gentle, protective, not possessive. Saielit breathed in the scent of storm rain and clean fur. Her own scent rose, quiet and warm, not a beacon, not a weapon. She whispered into the dark, "No more cages." Varkhion's voice was rough against her hair. "No more." Saielit closed her eyes. For the first time, she fell asleep without waiting for pain.